Today's episode is brought to you by EliteFTS.com. Founded in 1998 with the primary aim to live, learn, and pass on. Please help Elite FTS support this mission by smashing the like button, leaving a comment, sharing with a friend, and thinking of us for your training needs. If you can put it in a gym bag or load weights on it, Elite FTS has it.
What's going on? I'm Dave Tate. We are broadcasting from the middle of the Elite FTS weight room, where the underground still thrives and you're part of the crew. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. Today's episode is brought to you by Element, a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you towards no sugar, no artificial coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and no BS. With Element, I love the watermelon. The watermelon tastes freaking awesome. I drink one pack every day, no matter what. People that train out here, it's sitting out here for them all the time. The boxes don't last very long. Right now, Element is offering Table Talk listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single-serving packages free with any Element order. Get yours at drinkelement.com/Table Talk. The deal is only available through the link in the description. The other thing is, if you don't like it, you can just give it away to a salty friend and Element will give you a 100% refund. No risk, money back guarantee. Head over to drinkelement.com/Table Talk. What's going on, guys? We are back with another episode of Table Talk. Today's guest is Jimmy Kolb. When I look at open powerlifting, right? I gotta like scroll twice. So there's a history there. So there's over a decade of accomplishments. I'm trying to limit the introductions because we can go through all these different accolades. You have 6, is that right? All-time bench records?
Current standing, yes.
Yes, and currently have the biggest lift of any lift done in powerlifting.
Also correct.
Which is 13, I don't want to look, I'm going to test myself.
Cool.
1320.
Yes, that's right.
But why do I want to say 1360?
That's a good question. That's a cooler number. I'm already bored of 1320. It's time to move on.
What did you try in the last meet?
I tried 1400 twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You want to know a backstory about that?
Please.
Did he ever tell you anything about that?
No.
Interesting. Okay. We're going to have some fun.
Oh, shit.
All right. So it was a Saturday, I believe, right? Was that Saturday? Yeah. It was a Saturday. So it's a squat day, which take forever out here. And we start talking about it. So we load the meat up, right, on the live stream. Mm. So we're watching the live stream, and the live streams for that federation are always just spectacular, right? Mm-hmm. And so we realized real quick why powerlifting is not a giant spectator sport. Mm-hmm. Because we're bored. And the only reason we're really watching it is to see what you do.
Sure.
Right? So she's already telling us from the jump, she's going to cry either way. Like if it happens or doesn't happen. So we're just waiting, for this lift to happen. Mm-hmm. And bored. Because it's after
powerlifting.
Training. So we start using Element packets to bet on if people were going to make the lift or miss the lift. And it just so happened to be the bench where most people are going to miss the lift, right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing was we had to first they had to teach me how to bet, because I don't know, I don't gamble, right? So then it was like with an odds thing. And then it was, oh God, there were kind of like all kinds of off things with this. Like, is the handler going to be a new person or a different person? And then you could tell, and you could tell who was going to miss just by what they looked like, what they were wearing, and what crew they were from. So immediately, it's like 3 packs in for this to miss. Okay. And then everybody else is 3 packs in. So then we realized we had to come up with other things, right? Of like, I can't remember all of them right now, but we started to realize this could be the future of powerlifting because it became way more fun to watch.
The gambling part.
Okay. Right? Yeah. Because it's, miss, not miss. Is it going to touch? I think that was another one. Yeah. Like, are they even going to be able to touch? Mm-hmm. Then you came up and nobody could bet against you, right? Because we don't want to see her to cry. Then she would cry even worse if somebody bet against it.
Sure. No hard feelings if you do. I mean, anything can happen.
But then by the time the benches got over, we were like, now we're all done.
Gotcha. No one wants to watch the deadlift. Mm-hmm.
So what was your takeaway from that meet? What did you learn?
I learn every day. Whether it be training, just everyday life, meets, I learn all the time. I don't know everything. Never will. So we had so basically what was happening was they switched out the barbell for me. I had concerns. I brought up, and I'm just a competitor. I'm not nobody special. I compete. I pay my dues. I have a membership. Whatever. I just brought up concerns. I said, hey, the Iron Wolf bar I feel like is going to whip severely. I've had that problem countless times, training and meets. And I said, do you think we could get the F8 bar, the Sportcraft bar, in there? And then Rob worked closely with Fred Fisher and got the bar approved for the IPA. Or just slightly approved. So like for my attempts, they would strip the bar, the Iron Wolf ball completely down, replace it with the F8 bar, and then load up my weight. But they were using those gold hundreds. Yeah. Those old pitted. And and it's not been an issue up until this meet. And I was having trouble controlling I was opening at 1325. And I wasn't dealing with, at that point, I wasn't dealing with whip. I was literally dealing with oscillation. And once that starts, you can't stop it. And I was like, that was strange. I was like, okay, fuck that weight. We'll go up to 1400. That's the goal anyway. Same thing was happening. I was dealing with, I could not control it. And I'd be lying if I didn't say, seeing Rob Farrell's F8 bar loaded to the ends when they put those giant iron collars on. My guys were having to rotate the plates to find how to hold the collar itself. There was no bar left. They're like, okay, if I rotate it this way, I can fit my fingers like this. And I'm like, I'm looking at it and it freaked me out. I was about to abandon the lift before I even tried. I'm like, this does not look safe. And my buddy Owen, my one teammate, turned around and said, you worry about yourself, we got this. So I went for it anyway, but I could not get a hand on any of the weights. So I think the extra stiff barbell coupled with the weight being out to the ends was not a good combination. I train with F8 barbells, and we use kilos, like all kilos, no hundreds mixed, just straight kilos, and I have no issues with that. So I learned that, okay, this caliber of a lift is not going to happen with pound plates. It has to be very, very oddly specific circumstances, preferably a 14-inch pad, which is now legal in the IPA. Awesome. Preferably an F8 barbell, and preferably with kilos. Like, that is where I'm at now. I'm not just walking into a commercial gym at 14, 15 years old and just grabbing any used-ass barbell and benching a plate or two.
Yeah.
Benching 1400 is so damn technical, and everything has to be perfect.
Where do you feel the oscillation start? Is it from the lift off, or is it after you have it set?
After I had it set, and I started to bring the weight down. And it's not just me. I could be shaking under the load causing it, but also those gold hundreds are kind of old.
Yeah.
And if they're pitted a little bit and they move, that's going to cause reverberations as well.
Yeah.
I've never had that problem. I could not control the weight.
Yeah.
I had no control over it whatsoever.
Well, it's interesting because when I was speaking to Blaine Sumner with his squat, that was because I was thinking that the issues he was having, because they're just using a 45-pound bar in the IPF, was the whip. And he said the whip isn't the problem. It's the oscillation that becomes a nightmare.
Yes. You can't stop it. You can't. It's impossible.
Yeah.
My first attempt with 14 was the best of all three. I brought it down with some more speed, and I think that negated some shaking issues. But I got down towards the bottom, going for the touch, and then it started.
Yeah.
I was like, damn it, I'll just take it. And then I think even on the third attempt, I had enough brain left at the bottom. I think I said, just take it. I said, just get it off me. I'm done. Fuck this. It's one of those pieces of reality that I have to deal with now with these types of weights. 1,000 pounds is 1,000 pounds, 1,100, but now 14, that is something I'm having to deal with on a weekly basis. It's rough.
When you've changed your training in the past year, because I was going through some of your content yesterday, and I want to get back to that, but I want to start with how you started developing your training philosophy in the first place, because you don't use a coach, right? You do it all yourself. You're the epitome of what I try to teach people, which is learn how to figure the shit out yourself and learn how to auto-regulate it.
Right.
And it's a different age today to be able to do that. And an interesting thing when I was going through your content was I found an article that you did for Power Magazine, which was in 2013.
Wow.
And actually it was when I was looking for the image to make the call out on Instagram, because I got to find something to be able to cut your fat head out of.
Sure.
And I'm looking, I'm like, that's my gym. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's him?
That was your old location.
Yeah, it was my old location. It was like a decade ago.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And like, we put some weight on. He got a little bigger. And so I'm reading the article, because the context is always interesting to read something that was put out a decade ago. And then you see a question like, well, what's your overall goal? Right? And the overall goal in that article was to bench 1,000 pounds in single ply. Damn. And you've accomplished that. Yeah. You know, so I'm intrigued by people that put out those big goals, because back there at that time, I think it was maybe 808-ish for the bench.
That I had done at that point?
Yeah, maybe a 9.
I did my first 912.
Okay, so right around there. And then to look and say, okay, that was hit. And then one of the things that you run into, or I see a lot, is lifters that set big objectives. I'm not a big fan of the word goals. It's just a personal thing that I have, right? Because you could fall short. Yeah. But it actually is a good way to explain it. Lifters that set big goals, then after they accomplish the goals that are big, they're like, what now?
What else is there?
Like, I'm the best of all time, so now what? Right? Now, an objective is a different thing in my head. Like, an objective is, okay, this is this part. But so that was your big objective, then you hit it, but then you found other ones.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And so getting up to, the other thing that I want to congratulate you on with that is now I don't know when the article was written. The published date was 2013. So it could have been, you could have been interviewed in 2012.
Sure.
But you were just about ready to get married.
Yeah. So it might have been in 2012 that we did that show. Yeah. It was actually the Monday after one of the Arnold Classics.
Yeah.
So it might have been that previous Arnold, and then it came out in 2013 or something. But they said, hey, you're a local guy. I was with MHP. Yeah. That's why we were there. So they said, hey, Brian Shaw is doing a photo shoot at Elite. Since you're local, because I was 2 hours east of there. They said, do you want to join him? I'm like, fuck yeah. No, I didn't know. I'm like, oh, photo shoot, 2 or 3 hours. No, it was 9 hours. I had never experienced that in my entire life. But that was, that's a long time ago, 10 years.
Yeah. Well, what I want to congratulate on it is you're still married.
Yes.
So you've been married for over a decade.
Yeah. We'll be celebrating 10 years in June.
You know, that's an accomplishment. Like, today's world, that's an accomplishment. Kudos for that. I'll say kudos for that before I will say kudos for the 1,300-pound bench.
Well, thank you.
Because that speaks volumes of who you are and who she is. So that aside, how did you get to that point in 2012? So how did you start, right? And I don't want to get into you've told the story a million times. Like, once you got locked into powerlifting and before the military, how were you training then, and what was the passion like at that point?
I mean, the passion's never gone away. It's gotten stronger. It's gotten more in depth.
How did it light?
At the start? Well, I was always involved in sports, and then I just happened upon the Weider Bodybuilding Encyclopedia in a bookstore, 400 pages, that thick. So I started out wanting to be a bodybuilder. I was looking at some guys had a hamstring that looked like a bicep. Just this cut vein. I was like, that's impressive. I want to do that. Yeah. So I bodybuilded for the first, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 months. I went from 150. Before I touched a weight in my life, I was 150 in middle school. And at 8 months, 9 months, I had gained 30 pounds, which, of course, lit off all the steroid use rumors and stuff in middle school, which was fantastic, even from teachers and coaches.
Yeah, I had that.
fucking, so that's great. Great for me. But, so I realized after 8 or 9 months, I'm like, oh, there's actually 2 routes I can take. I can be as big as I possibly can. That's my main concern. Or I can go the strength route. And I found the strength to be more impressive, the route that I wanted to go. So I abandoned bodybuilding and started lifting for strength. So from 14 is when I started lifting weights to 18. I was just lifting weights in any way, shape, or form, doing overhead stuff. I mean, anything, hang cleans, deadlift, just overhead press, bench, squat, trying to be as big and strong as possible as a high school kid. And then I got introduced to the actual sport of powerlifting at 18 years old. I was lifting at a local YMCA.
Before that?
Before
being introduced to powerlifting?
Yes, before being introduced, I was at a YMCA. Not bad for what I was doing. Found a man by the name of Adam Hicks.
In the YMCA? In
the YMCA, because he was going to school right down the road. He was actually from West Lafayette, Ohio, which is just east of Youngstown. Zanesville, I'm sorry. And he was going to the Y just because it was right next to the campus, literally. And so he found me, and he brought me to a gym called Blackstone's, which is in West Lafayette. And that was where it all clicked.
Now, were you in high school at that time still, or after high school?
That was my junior year. I was 18.
Okay.
So a junior in high school, 220 pounds, never competed. He started taking me to Blackstone's, started getting into shirts, wraps, power belts, not those Vallejo crappy belts from Dunham's and Dick's. And that's where it all started, was Blackstone's gym.
So you were introduced to the sport when gear was rampant.
Yeah. That's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
So I started. I was a big research kid.
Yeah.
I got in trouble at school all the time from using the computers for not schoolwork. Research, just anything I could find. Open power or not powerlifting watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just scanning it, printing stuff out. But gear that's what it was. And as soon as they brought me to Blackstone's, they threw me a bench shirt. So I learned how to bench with a double denim Karen Klein.
Okay, there's a story there. What federation were they all competing in at the time?
APF.
APF.
That was because John Blackstone's the state chair for APF for Ohio.
Okay.
And he still is to this day.
Yeah.
So APF. Now, my first meet experience was actually a non-sanctioned high school meet in Danville.
Yeah.
And then there was also a state meet in Kenton. Not Canton, but Kenton. Those are just non-sanctioned types. All still regulatory, hit depth, pause on the bench, don't let go of the bar and deadlift stuff. But my first sanctioned meet was in 2009, still in high school. Still at 18 was the NASA High School Nationals in Oklahoma City. Yeah, NASA. That's an actual thing.
Was it still?
It was. It was big. It was huge.
Yeah, no, it was big. It was big with high schools. But it also kind of, I think because when I came up, it was around, right? In a way, we kind of have similar backgrounds. It's just mine was earlier. It was when I was 12 or 13, got thrown into a gym that was all power lifters. It's all gear. Cool. Because there was nothing else other than that, so sometimes I think lifters get bashed for what federation or style of lifting they do. And people seem to forget that's how they were introduced. And that's all they really know. Yeah. So that's kind of how they came, or groomed, or whatever you want to say. And the interesting part about it is with NASA, it was one of your gym may have been the same way. They were kind of like there was also high school meets too, which were just unsanctioned. And I was always told, don't do those, right? And okay, I don't do that. Was it the same, or they were pushing to do that? So
I was still, when Adam Hicks first brought me to Blackstone's, I wasn't in there full time yet.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, Blackstone's cool, but I was still going to the Y. I was kind of probably like 70-30, 60-40 in favor of the Y. So when I was doing the high school meets, I was not like in there full time yet. They wouldn't have I saw some of them. Before I knew who they were, I saw a few of them at these high school meets.
Okay.
Rusty Bluck was one of them.
That name, how do I know that name? Did he actually come to Westside?
He did. He came to Westside. I don't know how long he was there.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's how I heard of Westside.
Yeah.
Was Rusty Bluck. Again, I don't know how long he was there, but he knew he had Louis'. He gave me Louis' number. That's how I got in contact with Louis for the first time. So I saw Rusty at this high school meet. I think right as I was going to Blackstone's or right before, I forget, but I saw Rusty, and then it turned out I went to Blackstone's. Rusty was there. I was, oh, there it is. So they wouldn't have discouraged it. But very quickly after becoming like, I was like, fuck the Y, I'm going here full time, even though the drive was like twice as far. Didn't care. That's where I started like doing the sanction stuff. And then obviously with John Blackstone being the state chair for APF, he hosts his own meets. I think at that time it was 2 per year, 2 annual meets. Now it's like 4 or 5. So then I got into the APF, and then I got branched out. We're in Ohio. There's meets everywhere. Now down in Virginia, there's 2 feds that rule that state. So up here you got everything.
Yeah.
I had like 12 federation cards in my wallet at one point. Because as long as it was within a reasonable distance, I went.
Yeah.
So that's how that all started.
Now, I don't think a whole lot of people know that you totaled slightly over 2,400 pounds at 220.
Yes.
You know, so a full meat lifter. At what age? You did that at 20 years old, right?
20 years old.
20 years old.
Yep.
Was that before the military?
Way before. Okay. I went to the military at 26.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was 20. I was like 218 body weight.
Yeah. I
was still in that phase where I thought you had to do full power because to be a, what I still agree with, full power lifter is a squat, bench, deadlift competitor. So I was still doing that. I didn't enjoy it. I hated full power. I still hate it to this day. But 218-ish body weight, 900 pound squat, 810 bench, 700 pound deadlift. Again, at 20 years old, which to this day I think is still the highest junior 220 total ever done. Well, in multiply, I'm sorry. In multiply.
Yeah, no, it may be.
I think it just got surpassed by a young fellow, but he was in a band shirt, so that's where that differentiation comes into place.
Yeah.
But as far as the divisions go, multiply, it's still there. So I was okay at it. I didn't fucking enjoy it though, which is why I stopped.
At what point did you decide to go bench only?
I've always wanted to be a bench guy. I was heavily inspired by Scott Mendelson, Rich Lack, Ryan Kennelly, and Tiny Meeker. Those are the 4 like OG 1,000-pound benchers. That's who I grew up watching. I was mostly always concerned with bench. I've always been better at bench than the other two. But I'd say 2013 is when I was like, okay, I'm just going to bench. And then I took off.
All right, so when you did that, so you had to change your training at that point. So what were some of the adjustments that you made going from full power to bench only?
More heavily specific bench stuff. I've always done 2 bench days. Even full power is always 2 bench days. So without the squat and deadlift, I would just fill those spots with like upper back training. Deadlift had a little bit to do with back training. I mean, just for the sake of building the back, not building a deadlift. Yeah. So like block pulls, rack pulls, all that dumb shit. So like 2 back days, 2 bench days, maybe a third day for like small stuff like rear delts and forearms and stuff like that. So it was easy because I wanted to do it. Did you keep any leg work in then at all? So you dropped it then? I dropped it like a bad habit. Okay. I just did not have any interest in doing it. It's kind of come back from time to time. I was squatting a lot last year. I didn't get into equipment. Coming back, I was just doing raw belt wraps, all the specialty bars, cambered bar, safety squat bar, stuff like that. I did get into a pair of single ply briefs for a second, but because I was kind of getting back into the full power mindset for just a hot minute, and I quickly abandoned that in favor of this is affecting my bench, so fuck that, I'm just gonna bench. So yeah. It's come a rise again, because when I do lower body, I get a smidge of gain on the bench. Everything I do, whether it's squatting, deadlifting, back, it's like I'm trying to bench more. Yeah. I look at the squat and deadlift as bench accessories. So if I think of it that way, I'll squat. Otherwise, it's just all bench. Well, the bench is still a full body movement, for the people that don't get that. It should be. And for the bench specialists that I've seen with lower body work, it's kind of like what you're saying. It will kind of come and go. Like you'll feel like your legs are not where they should be when you bench. But it doesn't take you very long to get it back where it needs to be. Right.
and then it's right back out.
Yeah.
Right. So that seems to fall in line with what I've heard from pretty much everybody when it comes to leg training for bench specialists. Yeah. But I think I'll ask you, do you think that there needs to be a base of leg strength beforehand?
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like you said, it's a full body lift, or if you're doing it correctly, it's a full body lift. I know leg drive can be like a controversial subject in some circles, but like I truly believe that every lift, including the bench, starts from the ground up. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think there should be a base of strength, like full body, regardless, especially before like getting into equipment. I mean, that's how I did it. I'm not going to say it's wrong to get right into equipment. I just believe it's better to train like bodybuild for your first year. Train, just get strong overall before committing to equipment. Mm-hmm. That's how I did it. It's not the only way to do it. There's lots of ways to do things. But I do think the base of strength in the legs is probably a smart idea.
I think holding off a little bit too can help with learning how to overcome sticking points, because a lot of people that I've seen will be training and then say we'll just stick with the bench. The bench isn't going up, so then they just, okay, I'm going to start using gear. Then the bench immediately goes up.
Sure.
Meanwhile, they probably should have figured out how to make it go up, because eventually it's just going to get stuck with the gear.
Oh, yeah.
And then their answer is, I have the wrong gear.
Yes. Just this, it's a cycle. I see it repeat itself. Yeah. Yeah. No, you should do the things that are hard. Find what you suck at, mm-hmm. and do that. You should probably do that shit more.
Yeah.
You know, just a very short story. I had a kid at a gym that we no longer go to by choice. He came to me, which almost never happened at this place, but he was benching around 350 and, USAPL combo racks and all that crap, and asking me for advice. And he said, I've been benching 350 for like 2 years, and I about fucking vomited. I was like, 2 years, 350. Asked him questions like, well, how often do you floor press? Never. Okay. How often do you bring your grip in and bench close? Never. Okay. How often do you incline? Never. Okay. I'm seeing a pattern here. So I said, let's try something. I took him over to the incline bench. I said, you're going to just try to do as much as you can. I want to see what your strength is on the incline with a close grip, trigger fingers on the smooth. He could not do 185. I said, son, you have very obvious weaknesses that you need to work on. He never talked to me again.
Really?
Yep. He didn't like that answer. I don't know. It's that USAPL mindset. So I don't know what it was, but I pissed him off, I guess. So very obvious weakness. Didn't take care of it. Just I don't know what happened to him. I left the gym shortly after. Very strange. Yeah, that happened.
Now I'm curious. I want to know the name, because I want to look up an open powerlifting to see if it ever went better. But
I don't even know the kid's name.
Oh, okay.
He was just a lifter, and he saw me, and I made short. He came up to me asking for advice, and I just asked him very basic questions. But he did SBD 4 days a week, wide grip bench 4 days a week. That's all he ever did. No no accessories. No, just squat, bench, deadlift, go home.
What in those years? What caused you to try to figure this stuff out instead of just leaning into doing X program or Y program?
Yeah, I think we mentioned at the beginning, I've never had a coach. I've never been programmed. I've had excellent friends. Like, I was taught how to bench. I was taught how to use a shirt. I was taught how. I've had excellent guidance, mentors. I'll call them mentors. Mike Fabi, Tracy Weiler, Adam Hicks, just to name a short handful. The people I work with now, even. But I've always, and I wish my younger self would realize, like, I was training on my own terms, getting great results. But then I would look around at the pros. I would look at Scott and Ryan and Rich Lack and go, well, they don't train like this, so it must be wrong. When in reality, I mean, I was young and dumb. In reality, I should have just kept doing that shit, because every person that is currently living and has ever lived and will ever live is completely different. We're all unique. We all have unique needs. So I am not Ryan Kennelly. I am not Scott Mendelson. I am me. So I wish I would have kept doing that shit. But I figured myself, I'm good. I got good self-awareness, finding out what works, what doesn't work, and sticking with it and adjusting things. I mean, I've been doing this for 18 years, 14 years competing. and I've had to change things here and there, and I'm getting older now, so things have changed, but I've always I just know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I've done my research. I've talked to countless people online, in person. I've had lots of guidance, but I've never followed a program.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been programmed by anybody. It's just me, and I love it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do what I want anyway. So
yeah, what I'm trying to figure out is why though, right? Because most people will go down the completely. Few do what you did, and it's if I could like figure out one mystery of this whole training world, I'd like to know what that one is, because I want more people to do that.
I guess I've just always seen a consistent growth. My bench went up 300 pounds in 3 years, 100 pounds a year for 3 years. From 19, 20 to 21, I was benching 600 at 19, and at 21, I benched 900. Just training on my own. Not by myself.
No, I get it.
Doing my own thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm fine. And I do that now. I went from 1,035 to 1,320 in 2 years.
Yeah.
So like I'm fine. So I've always seen results. So I just do what I do.
Now, have you always tried to put yourself around people that can see technical things that you may not be doing that you should work on, or do you have to find those yourself by filming everything?
A little bit of both. My wife can catch anything.
Okay.
Believe that or not. I can go to her for any advice whatsoever. She can see everything.
And she'll tell you that unsolicited.
Oh, no, she don't give two fucks. So,
well, the reason why I'm saying that is because you're known as one of the best benchers ever, right? So if you go into a gym like you were out here Sunday, very few people that don't know you very well are going to say, "Dude, I think you're holding the bar a little bit too far back on your hands." Right. Because you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because of the position that you're in.
Yeah. I've never had to work at surrounding myself with like those knowledgeable types.
Yeah.
I've had great people around me my entire career. I think if you are just truly are a good person, I truly believe that you just draw good people to you. I really believe that. So I've always just had good people. And I've been also in a position where normally I've always been the strongest one wherever I've gone. Or if I wasn't, it didn't take a lot of time.
Yeah.
I didn't show up to Blackstone's the strongest. Now, like Iron Chamber and Canton, I showed up as a 900-pound bencher. That was the heaviest, and same thing with our gym down south. But yeah, I've been very, I'll say, I hate this word, but privileged, I guess, to have good people around me that aren't afraid to, because I admit, like, I don't know everything. I'll develop bad habits too. I'm still human. And they'll say, "Hey, you did this or you didn't do this," and she's really good at that. Like, I have a really bad problem right now of being lazy with my lower body, and she goes, "Don't be lazy, turn those legs on." And she can see that if I'm doing it or not. So it's worked out well.
No, it's you see where I'm coming from though, because I see that so many times, especially if I'm traveling around or when I used to do seminars all the time. You find the strongest guy in the gym, and I'll watch their group train, right? And then the strongest guy and all the top people, they're really good at helping everybody else till the top person goes. Then everybody's quiet. I'm like, okay, this is really weird. Like, the person who probably is going to screw up on the minute level is that person.
Got it.
You know, and nobody's saying anything because they don't want to seem like they're overstepping or...
I see.
Yeah.
We don't have that problem. The way we conduct ourselves and the way we train, the way our group goes, there is no... I don't know if this word is correct or not, but like hierarchy or... No. We're just a group of friends that are doing the same thing and really fucking enjoying it. Yeah. And I get critiqued. I critique others because I still don't know everything and I'm still learning.
I think you just answered my question, by the way.
Yeah.
Because if those top lifters are trying to create a hierarchy in what they're doing, then they're going to limit what's going to come to them.
Sure. Yeah. No.
Because people, I don't want to get thrown out of here. You know, I want to, whatever it's going to be, stupid shit like that.
Fuck that.
Why did you go into the Marines?
Well, so we got into a point where, after the 2014 was a really good year for us. Went to the Arnold Classic. It was my first time competing on the Arnold stage. Now, I had done the XPC finals the year before in 2013. That was the last time I did full power. I didn't quite... So I did 24-10 in like 2010 or 11, competed in 13. My squat went up, my bench went up, my deadlift went down. So my total went down. Considerably, my deadlift went down because I was also heavier. 2014 is the year I won the Arnold bench competition when it was still heaviest bench takes all. Because now they got this different thing now. It's the last man standing, which I'm doing this year. But back in 14, 15, 16, it was still heaviest bench, fuck weight classes, just heaviest bench. Won it. That was excellent. 2015 comes around. Not a good year. Leading up to the next Arnold, I bombed out of like 2 meets in a row. Leading into the Arnold, I bombed out of the Arnold. So I got to a point where it changed for me. It was just bombing out of the Arnold, bombing out of the last 2 or 3 meets before that. I kind of felt like I was getting burnt out for the first time in my life. And I said, well, I'm just not going to compete for a while. I told MHP, like, hey, I'm not going to compete for a while. I'm kind of done for now. I just want to train, have fun. So I said goodbye to MHP. And that break from competing kind of turned into a hiatus. I'm not going to call it a temporary retirement, like a hiatus from the sport. I turned all my passion from lifting into the current line of work I was in. I was working at a brick manufacturing plant called Belden Brick over in Sugar Creek, Ohio.
Yeah, it does not sound fun.
It was fucking garbage. Jesus Christ. Just I was on the packing line, so we handled the fired finished product off the carts that go through the kiln to get fired. They cool off, and we handle them with our hands and put them in jigs. We're going a mile a minute piecework. The more you do, the more you get paid. So we're going a mile a minute for 8 hours a day. It sucked. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But I had a passion for it. It was awesome. It was gratifying to be able to do it right because it's a very hard job. Within 1 year, I was the old salty man who could like see a new guy walking in and go, "I ain't gonna make it." It took 1 year to get to that point because it was just so fucking hard. So I didn't lift weights for about a year. I lost like 20 pounds just from not lifting weights. And I was working like a fucking workaholic.
Yeah.
I was trying to get a second job actually. I wanted 2 factory jobs.
So to put things in context for people who are watching or listening, what did you weigh at the time when you say you lost 20 pounds?
So I went from 230. I was trying to stay at 230 when I was still lifting.
Yeah.
I went down to probably about 210.
So a big difference.
Huge.
Yeah.
I lost everything.
Yeah.
I looked like I was sick.
Yeah.
I looked really bad. So we got to a point in our lives where I was working myself to death, almost literally. She was working like 2 jobs. Never saw each other. We're just surviving. We're not living. And I looked around and I was like, well, I'm not lifting weights. Well, no, I guess I looked at it like I've been able to lift weights, get married, do what I want to do, go where I want to go for so long. And I was like, I want to be able to, and because we have the freedom to do that. We have those freedoms because we're military. And so I was like, you know what? I want to go into the military and give back. Because I've lived a very, very good life. So I was like, I'm going to do that. So I talked to a recruiter. Actually, I wanted to go into the Army. She said, fuck no. Chair Force or Marines. Pick one. You're not doing.
Why no on the Army?
Just because of there's like, I guess in that time there was just a stigma. It was just something like either go with the best, well-trained, the hardest one, or go with the, again, Amber's back there, or go with the cushiest one. I'm not trying to be offensive. One or the other. Looking back, I wish I would have went Air Force.
Yeah.
Fuck. So, anyhow, so that's how it started. And within 3 weeks, I was signing paperwork, and within 6 months in the delayed entry program, the DEP, I was on my way to Parris Island.
Okay.
I was just in a point in my life where it was just stagnant. I needed a change, wanted to give back. So when I'm like old, I can say I gave back. I gave back to the country that I've been so privileged to grow up in and do what I want to do. What we all want to do.
Yeah.
That's what it came from.
So as you're in, did your passion fall 100% into that?
Yes. Oh yeah. Same thing as lifting weights to my Belden Brick job, as did that into the Marines.
Yeah.
I was living and breathing the bleeding green. I loved the fuck out of it. At first.
I was gonna say, at what point did that change?
Ooh, as soon as I hit the fleet. So the fleet is where you're you're done with all your training, you're done with all your, if you go MOSs, you got like schooling, and you get deployed to your first duty station, your active duty station, and you are now in the fleet is what we call it. I think the other branches have a different word for that, but we call it the fleet. You know, everybody's experience is different. Mine was hot fucking garbage.
Why?
It just was. So the unit I ended up at was at Quantico, which is why we're still in the area, because we never left. When I got out, we stayed where we were at. And I had a horrible unit. Just, there was no, and I went in as that's the other thing too. I went in as an adult.
Yes.
Which is one thing that Parris Island taught me. 18-year-olds are not adults. Opinion based, but going to Parris Island with 80-ish 18-year-olds proved several things, and they are not adults. They are children because they act like it. So anyway, that's a rabbit hole. But so going in as an adult, I wasn't dismantled at Parris Island to put back together the way they wanted. I had life experience. You know, they were just playing games. I wasn't changed. I came out the other end like, fitter and, different attitude, but like I was not changed. I wasn't what they say, brainwashed from the island.
Now with the other kids that you're talking about, the non-adults, is it necessary for them because they need to have that to change?
Yes.
Okay.
Now a lot of them, a few of them were changed like, holy shit, like for the better. It was so cool to see the other side. A lot of them just came out the other end with the same punk ass attitude they had going in, but just bigger egos now.
Okay.
So going through Marine combat training, which is right the next step after Parris Island, Camp Geiger, was also atrocious because now these punk ass kids with shitty attitudes and like inflated egos can't take orders or directions from anybody. Like, why do I need to listen to you? I'm a fucking Marine. Like, you're a fucking PFC. Take the order. Listen. Simple stuff, But when I hit the fleet and I ended up at this really crappy unit with lack thereof leadership, at least for the first year, I had a horrific experience with the person that was in charge of me. The Marine Corps sees more deaths in garrison than they do out in the field or out of country. More people kill themselves in the Marine Corps here at home than we lose people out in the country. So that tells you anything. Marines get treated like shit. And I did. For the first year, it was horrible. Now I had somebody step in at a later date who took care of us. And that changed, but like the damage is already done.
Yeah.
And at that time, like I said, like, I'm not doing this shit anymore. 4 years and I'm done.
So that was a year in or 2 years in?
Let's see. I had about 7 or 8 months of training.
Yeah.
So I'd say it was about a year and a half or maybe close to 2 years in.
Okay.
After the training was out of the way, my first year in the fleet is what determined like, absolutely not.
Okay.
Fuck this.
Well, that's going to determine your attitude on the next 2 years too.
Well,
right?
This is why the recruiters will tell you, don't base your opinion on the Marine Corps within your first 4 years because it's going to that's what they mean. It's going to suck.
But aren't you signed up for 4 though?
You were signed up for 4, but like you have no choice. You're stuck.
Yeah.
But they say so they're like, well, if you re-enlist, the second will be better. It's like, fuck you. No, this is Marine Corps.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck what you say. So that's kind of funny how they do that. But you're just a number to the recruiters. They don't care what's going on. They told me from the beginning, because even at 210, 205, just a twig, I was a fat cow to the Marine Corps. They said, hey, you realize your weight is going to be a problem your whole career. And I was like, why are you letting me do this? I had to be like 185 to get on the bus. But little did I know, because it was not told to me. When I hit the fleet, I got to be 160. I was mum to that fact. I was never told. So I got to the fleet heavy, and my weight was a problem my whole time in. It just compounded. It was just more. Yeah. So it was garbage. So I found lifting weights about mid-enlistment, about 2 years in.
Okay.
I was trying to, hysterically, I was trying to improve my run time.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need more conditioning because it wasn't the cardiovascular, it was my legs. So I started squatting and high rep stuff.
So you should have been squatting the whole time, right?
See, yeah. My mistake. I can't go backwards. So started squatting and to improve my leg endurance or my leg work capacity, say, conditioning to improve my run time, which kind of worked, but that was just a little ember down there, and hitting those weights again for that purpose started to grow.
Did it also make your weight go up though too?
I didn't gain any weight from that. All right. Now, once that little ember grew into a bigger and bigger fire, and then the lifting just came back full force, then once I started getting like serious about lifting again, my weight went up.
Okay.
But I needed something else in my life.
Did it help you finish the last 2 years?
Yes. Yeah. I not to get overly, like, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Not to get too, I guess, graphic.
Yeah.
But it could have, that could have killed me. It was that bad. It's not funny. It was horrible. So that plus, it'd be selfish of me to do that to her.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, training does that for a lot of people, right? It becomes your way to help deal with things.
Yeah. It gave me an out.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, hope too, right? Because
definitely.
I mean, hell, even if I was doing something and I knew I didn't want to do it anymore, but still had to do another 2 years,
you're stuck. Like,
that's fucking 24 months,
dude. Fuck you. If you want to get out, you go to prison.
Yeah.
So they're trying to scare me into, like, they knew I wasn't re-enlisting.
Yeah.
On top of that, I'm like, dude, look how big. Like, look at me. Like, you think I'm re-enlisting? Like, but they're like, well, you know, like, you go out into the civilian world, you could have a job and get fired on the spot for no reason, and you're out of work. And I'm like, true, but if I'm in a shitty situation that I want to leave and get out of, I can say deuces and fucking leave.
Yeah.
Can't do that here. So
yeah,
yes, that's the difference. That's a trade-off, I guess. Like, you're guaranteed a paycheck, like, no shit, but you're stuck in a 4-year, we'll call it a contract. Yeah. No matter how bad it gets, fuck you, you're staying in. Civilian world, you have to work a job and maintain that job to get that paycheck, but if something sucks, you can leave.
Yeah.
You have the freedom to do that. So it's just, boy. But anyway, yeah, I got back in lifting weights, I'm in enlistment because I needed something else in my life besides Marine Corps. Sitting on the couch with her one night, you know, just miserable and sad, and she you know, we're talking a little bit. She finally asked the question. She goes, "What do you want? What do you want to do with your life?" And I said, "I want to bench 1,000 pounds."
And when was this point?
Ooh.
You were still in?
I was still in, probably about halfway. We're probably at 2 years plus.
Okay.
Because I had met and done every single goal I had ever set for myself before.
Yeah.
Except for benching 1,000 pounds. I set that as I actually attempted at the 2015 Arnold Classic, and when I bombed out. So I was attempting 1,000 pounds as far back as 2015. Bombed out of that meet, whatever, left the sport for that temporary hiatus. So I said, I want to bench 1,000 pounds. And at that point, called sponsors back, started getting equipment, started training for it, and then while still an active duty Marine, March of 2020, fined it 1,000 pounds. That was within about 8 months of getting out, but even such, still active duty. So we did it.
Yeah.
It was
so
awesome.
She saved your life, and benching saved your life.
It did.
Literally.
It did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you get out, how much did you weigh when you got out?
Ooh, shit. Probably like 280.
Really?
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. And I was supposed to be 160.
How much shit did you hear for that?
A lot.
At what point did you just stop giving a shit?
Oh, like 2 years in.
Okay.
A year into the fleet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it got to that point. Like, it was that bad. I said, kick me out. I don't give a fuck. Like, we won't get benefits. I don't fucking care. Get me out of this nightmare. They wouldn't. They didn't. I got out with an honorable discharge. I'm clean.
Yeah.
But that's it was to that point where I was like, I don't care. Like, get me out. You know, benefits aside, and I'll work a job. I've worked my entire life, throwing bricks, doing whatever. I'll do that again. Fuck it. I won't dare not provide.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever I have to do to survive. But yeah, it's about 2 years in, I was like, You know, I started lifting weights, gaining weight. They hated it, but I was like, I don't care. Still passed all my tests and stuff. So like, what are you gonna do?
No, but it makes it pretty easy for me to see why you don't have a problem handling criticism. Like, what is some troll gonna say online that's gonna come close to the shit?
You know, that's the funny thing with like social media and the internet. I hate the internet. I wish it would just go away, but it's weird because nobody's negative opinion has ever stopped me or negatively affected my performance. It's strange how that works. Yeah, I still do what I want to do. You can say what you want online, but I'm not going anywhere. Sorry.
So when you get out and you start training again, I'm assuming there was exponential growth because a huge stressor was just
dropped. Not just physically but mentally.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, immediately.
So tell me about it.
Well, I hit that bench in March of 2020, and that was March. And then there were no meets the rest of the year because of the whole COVID bullshit, whatever. So I get out in October 16th of that year. So October 16th. So I just celebrated my 2 years out not too long ago. But fast forward, so October, November, December, January. I gotta look at my tattoos. Yeah, January 31st. So about 3 or 4 months of being out, I went to a meet and did my second 1,000-pound bench press in Belmar, New Jersey at the Attilas gym. Excellent. And benched 1,050, but this time in single ply. So I just surpassed my multiply bench by 15 pounds. Because that first initial bench was a multiply bench. And I benched 1,050 in single ply. And that kicked off the year of 2021. Excellent year. And then, it just, ever since I got out, it's just been bench. I really like it.
What are the tattoos?
Well, I only have 3. They're a little out of date. I don't have all of my 1,000-pound. These are my 1,000-pound benches. Just weight, date, and location.
Okay.
The idea was to go all the way around with. So I'm like 8 short. So I need to get more, but I was just really proud of that. That was a pivotal moment for us. That first 1,000-pound bench, bringing me back. You know.
Yeah. When you say for us, explain that.
For me and Katie.
Okay. Now, how she's part of this?
She's been so we've been together almost 13 years, right? Don't cry. She's missed like 2 meets in 13 years. 2 meets. Because like she couldn't fly with me to California, or she couldn't, or I think her grandma was sick one day or something. So she's been with me every single step since I was 19 years old. So she knows just as much as I do. You know? But to come from a really dark spot, overcome it, and get that goal I never accomplished was good for us. So that's why I got the tattoos. But yeah.
When in some of the podcasts that you do, because it's Kolbstrong podcast.
Yeah, the Kolbstrong Power podcast.
Power podcast, right? Yeah. May as well get the plug out, right? So Kolbstrong Power projects. I just screwed it up.
No, you're good. No,
say it again.
Kolbstrong Power podcast.
Yeah. She's answering questions. She's helping you along.
Yes.
With that whole thing. So that's when you say we, it truly is.
It is.
You know, we.
Yes.
And that's another unique thing to where you don't see that very often.
Yeah, it's been really good. It's been very positive. And she, like I said, she's seen me at my lows. She's seen me at my highs. She sees what works. She sees what doesn't. So I can come. We can talk.
Yeah.
These things out. It's just it just works. It's a dynamic that works.
Yeah. The one conversation that actually made me giggle a little bit when I was watching it is you were talking about a 1,500-pound bench, and you said maybe a Q&A, and I think your answer was something like, "Nah, that's not going to happen." She's like, "What do you mean you just said that's not going to happen?"
Right.
And it was an interesting dialogue,
yes.
which it was kind of funny to listen to.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see that you have somebody to call you out on your bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, which I think is an important
thing. That's the funny thing. She's not afraid to do it. And people, like, we go to meets and I'm warming up, or we go to a different gym and I'm benching, she'll do that. And people will go, did you get people turn and go, oh my God, she's talking to him like that? I was like, well, yeah, it's normal. Like, She won't let me get away with anything. Like, when it comes to this, especially, like, because I know how to do it right. She knows what looks right when something's not right. Especially, there's no room for error with these weights anymore. So everything has to be on point. And if I forget something or anything, bad habits arise, she can see them and we can correct them. It's like having a camera, you know, or she can watch.
So what are your, you know, objective now? Like, what are you training for now? Not 5 years from now, but now.
Currently, I am trying to accomplish that 1,400-pound bench. That is where all the focus is. Everything I do every day, recovery, training, eating, whatever the fuck it is, sleeping, is all for that 1,400-pound bench. That's the that's the short-term goal. Long-term, I describe long-term as being like, maybe it's too short, like 1 to 2 years, give or take. I've with my recent training, with my recent accomplishments, I've made it public. I truly do think a 1,500-pound, 3/4 ton bench is humanly possible, whether I do it or somebody else does it, because anything can happen, right? But that is like the long term, but also my ultimate goal. The number, because I've never, one of our things with Kolbstrong is never enough. It's never been enough. It never is. But I feel like I finally reached that point where 1,500 would be where I could say I am truly happy with that, and I can move on and pursue other things like full power. That's the number. Now,
full power? And you just sat here and told me.
No, I'm being serious. Yeah, I've gotten partly coerced into it, partly not. I want to get back into it. Again, I have so many goals in bench right now that I can't divert.
No, I was going to say, you can't even think about it.
No, because my heaviest training lift was within 37 pounds of 1,500 pounds. Like, it's just, I'm tasting these numbers right now. It's going to happen. And unfortunately for me, one of my good and bad qualities is whenever I set a goal, I will not stop until I do it, no matter how much of it sucks or I hate it. So the 1,500 pound bench numbers, I got goals in poly as well for bench press I want to get back to. But even like full power, so I'm going to do it eventually. Yeah.
With your training, and you've changed it, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but I'm going to make some assumptions first, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Sure.
Is part of the reason why you had to change it, and I use the word carryover hesitantly because there's a bigger carryover in the band than compared to single ply. So your single ply bench shirt is, I'm just going to guess. I'm going to speak for you. Let's say your single ply right now, if you got acclimated to it, could be 1,100, close to that.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more. And so if you could train raw more effectively for that than you could a 1,500 out of a band shirt, because the difference between, now granted, I know your position on raw and I agree with it 1,000%, right? 1,000%.
Sweet.
But let's say if hypothetically, your raw bench is 800 pounds, 750, whatever it's going to be.
Okay.
That discrepancy between 750 and 1,500 is big, which means you have to train in something all the time, right? So
you're right on the money, yeah.
So if you go, when I was at Westside, we never used gear. We only used it at the meet. Well, the carryover that's part of the reason why our carryover sucked,
minimal,
right?
Yeah.
Where if we would have used it more, then it would have had more of a payoff. Yes. But what if the carryover potential is so much higher, you almost can never not use it? Because how do you, percent-wise, like if you say you didn't use it, how do you even train? Because all your weights then are going to have to be under 700 pounds.
Yeah. The gap,
half.
Dude, the gap is too big.
Yeah.
That's why, A, I don't care about raw. B, I'm not going to do it to please others.
Well, C, you can't afford to do it.
No.
Because that just gap.
Yeah, the gap is, like, why would I train with 4, 5, 6, maybe 700 when I'm trying to bench 14, 1,500?
Yeah.
We're talking almost close to 1,000 pounds less than my goal.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
So then, see, with that gap, that becomes weird. Like, so how do you navigate and train with that gap?
So it's a little bit different between poly and then the band shirts. So right now I'm in the band thing, or the band game, we'll call it the band. There's a lot more emphasis on. So I've always been a fan of I call it consistent overload. Again, I don't cycle, I don't peak, I don't do any of that stuff. I just train heavy year round.
Yes.
With minor adjustments, maybe a little bit lighter on this day, low on that day. So with poly and band shirts, I do overload all the time regardless. Now with the polys, there was a little more emphasis, a little more need for the upper end raw. So like your raw 2, 3, 4 boards. When I was younger, I used to follow, one of several lifters was Sean Latimer. And he would do low end raw, top end shirt. And of course, me being young and influential, I'm like, I'll do that. Didn't fucking work at all. I couldn't touch weights. I'd bomb out of meat. It was just bad. So I flipped it a while ago, and I started doing low end shirt, top end raw, and that really worked. That worked excellent, leading up to that big poly number that I hit in 21, or 22, whatever it was. So now the band shirts, because the weights are so much heavier, consistently heavier than they are in poly, there was a lot less need for like the top end raw, and I needed to just handle heavy weights like 1,000-pound floor presses and whatever to build that strength, that capability of handling the 13, 14, 1,500 pound loads. That's mostly where the difference between the two anyway.
So if it's consistently always overload, is that both the bench days of the week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then how do you auto-regulate that? So how do you know when to back it down, when not to back it down? Just based upon your warm-ups?
When I feel like shit.
Yeah.
Some days when I feel like shit, I have excellent days.
Well, that's where I want to go. Like, how do you walk me through a day where you have to pivot and go less?
Okay. So, for example, my I don't have a shirted and a raw day. I have a shirted and a not shirted day. That's how I structure it.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll on the not shirted day, I'll just have I'll wear something, but it's not a shirt. It's like a slinger or a couple of inserts.
Yeah.
Just not a full shirt with a belly on it, whatever. So if I have I don't usually know what I'm doing until I get to the parking lot. I'm like, let's see, what could be cool? What could be fun? What could be, say, fun but also productive? Not just going in there to bullshit. I'm always trying to move forward. If I'm going in there with a predetermined goal that I figure out pretty much on the spot, maybe it's really heavy weight, maybe it's board, I don't know what it is, it's really heavy. If I do honestly feel like shit, if something's not working, or in the very rare circumstances I don't have enough people, I have no choice but to pivot, I'll go, okay, I came here for a reason. That reason is not going to happen. I don't dwell on it. I don't get pissed off. I don't whatever. I just, okay, I brush that aside. I take a different direction. So what am I capable of doing today? Maybe it's not doing, reps with 1,000 pounds on the floor press or on the boards or dead stop presses, whatever it is. So that's sometimes where I'll do, banded rack lockouts where I can have no spotters at all. That's still going to train that upper end, stuff. Or on the rare circumstances where I do the rep out sets that piss everybody off, which is funnier than hell. Which are just personal challenges. Okay, well, 6 months ago I did 700 for 30. Let's just try that. If the number goes up, or if I match the number or it goes up, I know something's getting better. Can I pinpoint it? Probably not, but something is getting better in my training. I'm moving forward. So that's kind of how it works. It's really based on how I feel. If I start warming up and things are getting heavy and they feel like dog shit, I'm like, okay, it's probably not going to happen. Scrap that. Let's do something else.
Well, it's also on your, like you said, it's on your environment, right? So if certain people aren't going to be there, you may not have the 3-man lift out that you're going to need. So instead of risking it, you're not going to do that. If it's a different gym and you don't have kilo plates or the bar, or obviously you're not going to say, fuck it, I'm going to do this.
Right. No, at that we're to that point where there is no, let's just fucking try it, because if something happens. I remember being, when I was still I was about 2 years deep into the Marines. We were at a gym, and I had a little bit of an oopsie, and I dropped 405 on my chest from full lockout. Just slipped out of my hands. It came down, it bounced, it came back down a second time. I fractured ribs, I pulverized my soft tissue, I fractured my thumb. That was 405. What's going to happen with 1,400 pounds? It ain't no joke.
No.
It's a hardcore thing. So that there is no just, let's just try it. No, it has to, it's structured. It has to, there's no choice now. It's kind of irritating sometimes because it has to be so structured, but that's what it takes.
At what point because there's certain things when I'll watch you bench a couple of times you've been out here that I love when you come out because it reinforces things I'm trying to tell other people to do that don't really understand why I'm trying to tell them to do it.
Okay.
For instance, hold the weight longer before you begin to descend.
Right.
Which is obvious to anybody that's ever lifted anything heavy, but with what you're lifting, you got to wait for the pad to compress, your body to, there's a lot of things that have to compress before you can go down. And oddly enough, the bar stops bouncing once everything compresses. Yeah. Where you'll watch other people. That's how we knew in the meet, like when we're throwing the element packs, right? It's like bars bouncing, nope, 3 in. You know, last time they never let it settle. 3 in, took it out, straight down, 3 in.
Yeah.
I think some of that comes just with lifting heavier weights, but I think it's still vitally important for people who even bench under 300 pounds.
Yes.
At what point did that really dial in for you? That the patience, let's just call it that.
Patience.
Right? Because most people take it out, and the first thing they want to do is lower it, press it, get it over with.
Yeah.
It don't work like that.
No, it doesn't. So I guess I could go. I've always benched like that. That's always been how I do it. I know the one gentleman that was here, he was, even something as simple as he was holding his breath from when the bar was in the rack to the hand out, the settling, all on one breath, and then going down. I said, bro, you're turning like dark purple. You got to breathe. I've always benched a certain way, and it's always worked. So as early on as benching, I think I benched 600 for the first time, which oddly enough was single ply. So I benched 600 single ply, 900 single ply, 1100 single ply. When the first time I hit those numbers, they were all single ply. But you know, I found what worked, and I've always had that, like, you know, take it out, steady, get that air, because you might be going down for a minute. You need as much oxygen as you possibly can get for the long descent, because sometimes that's just how it works. So learning early on how to do that is just kind of carried forward to all these heavier weights, and it's become more and more obvious why these things are so important with these heavier loads. Sometimes they're not going to be in ideal circumstances. For example, at the Baddest Bencher #2 that happened this year, or 2022, I'm sorry, we were using one of the Texas bench bars. I don't like Texas bench bars because at my weights, the bar is just a noodle. And all the things you just mentioned, settling in, depressing the pad, the body, everything's being compressed. Even with that, I was still having to control a shaking bar on the way down. I got 2 out of 3 lifts that day, like super happy about it. But it's something I've developed from the very start, getting into equipment, because that's how I was taught.
Yeah.
I was taught to bench a certain way by very knowledgeable people here at Blackstone's, and that's carried through all the way 14 years later. That's how it's happened.
Walk me through your bench setup.
Yeah.
Right. So she gets you ready. You sit on the bench. Then what?
So I sit on the bench. The last thing I do before I lay back is I visualize. It's like just within seconds, but I'm visualizing the weight in my hands, touching, pressing. I visualize the entire lift. Sometimes I'll, give me a head nod, like, okay, that's the last thing I think of before I lay down, and then just the habits and the nature just kind of takes over. The same thing I've been doing for 18 years on the setup, just kind of like, okay, now it's time to work. Fuck thinking, just do it. Lay down. Setup, I'll just talk about the current setup with the band shirts. That's what I'm currently doing. Lay down. I grab the bar, pronated, right in the middle. Not even like full grip, just like I'm on the bar. I lay there for a quick second, get some breath. Like Dean, my one training partner, always says, get some air, breathe. Don't start getting over exaggerated. Just sit this, relax, just chill, get some breaths, When I'm ready to go, pick myself up off the bench, which is kind of hard when I got sticky on my back. Plant my shoulder blades, do all that classic stuff, push with the legs, get in that wedge position, stretch the shirt over your body, start setting the arch, pinch the shoulder blades. I'm staying here, especially in the band shirts. This is not my job, getting my hands out. That's his job. I call it riding the rail, something we did earlier today, where I just hold the bar. They push my hands out while holding the bar. I ride the rail out. Instead of trying to come out and around the bar, all that difficult shit, I just hold here and just go boop, boop, straight out like that. Just make sure the most important thing with these thick-ass band shirts, I wanted to pull you forward, is just keeping your shoulder blades back. That is the hardest fucking thing to do. It takes so much upper back strength, but also upper back endurance to accomplish that, which is where all my back training comes into play. And then just all the classic stuff, handoff, press, rack.
Okay, so when you lower, are you tucking or elbows out?
I'm not forcibly trying to tuck very hard. I find a position where my elbows belong and I just stay there. So I'd say as I break at the elbows, I will determine where I want them to be and ride that same position down the whole way. So I'm not starting flared and then really exaggerating the tuck in the bottom. I'm just staying in a neutral. I'm not flared. I'm in a tucked position, but I'm not actively doing anything on the way down. Okay. It's in one position. I stay there. Simplify it. I don't like things to be too complicated. And this can be complicated, this whole thing. But I listened to a few people that were telling me in the band shirts that you have to flare. That's how they work. I'm like, all right, kill. I'll do that shit. 1,000 pounds, flared elbows, my shoulder would pop. Be down for 4 weeks. Like, okay, I'm not doing that shit. I know how to bench and equipment. So, fuck that shit. So I just started benching like I did my polys for 13 years. Tuck, pick the head up, go low on the belly. All that shit I learned at Blackstone's, and they just started working consistently. That's where I've had all the success the last couple of years.
Okay. And then on the way up, say it starts to stall 3/4 up. Is there any... what do I want to say? Acrobatics. Like, are you trying to let the bar drift towards the J cups and turn elbows out, or are you just trying to push through it?
I'm not trying to push through it. I know it's called a bench press. Yeah. I'm not trying to necessarily push. I'm trying to extend as hard as I can.
What do you mean?
So instead of trying to think about, the whole cue, if you're pressing, you get to that sticking point we're talking about, and then the cue is, rip the bar apart, start spreading the bar apart to activate the triceps. Yeah. I do that at the beginning. I don't wait till the end. I come down to touch. The first thing I want to do is to activate the triceps. I extend in the bottom so I can follow through with a tricep dominant press. So I don't have that two-step motion on the way up. It's one fluid motion all the way up. So when I stall, I've gotten in trouble going back over the face too much, put the weight in the rack too early, and then, almost dump it. So I'm keeping it mostly over the body. There's minuscule amount of back. So the hill is very steep. Yeah.
I was going to say, with your weights, if it's going back, you're fucked.
You're screwed.
There's no spotters that are going to...
That's where all these habits we have of, like, our team, our spotters, come in here. Like, I knew I was going to be cool. Yeah, like, I knew, no doubt. But things like the body savers. Yeah. Just in that instance, where my crew's caught weight before. 1,400 pounds, took a shit with it one day, got it, no problem. But our rule is I don't bench without body savers. If I was we're doing make-believe. If I was the CEO of powerlifting, I had this question on a podcast a while ago. I was like, that's awesome. So if I was the CEO of powerlifting, it came down to, would I make the wider pads like standard in all feds, or make body savers mandatory? And I went with that one. I think body savers should be a non-negotiable requirement. And not just having them on the bench, actually moving them up and down.
Yeah, it should be part of your when you check in.
Yes.
It's like, here's like a rack height.
Rack height, yeah. bench height, the table says, all right, Joe Schmuckatelli up, rack height is 2 holes showing, body savers are 9 holes showing.
Yeah.
For each lifter, so that if the bar does fall, it's going to fall ½ inch.
Mm-hmm.
That should be non-negotiable, in my opinion, because they've saved my ass more than once, probably more than on both hands, I'd say, with really serious weight. And a lot of feds don't use them, and it really irritates me. Like how, I know we all sign the waivers.
Yeah.
I get that. But the meet director should be responsible enough to give a shit about the lifter. I don't care. I don't give a shit who you are. If you had 5 enormous dudes, 2 on each side, 1 in the middle, on that bar,
they're not catching.
No, you're not. I was trying to do a meet a few years ago that was within reasonable driving distance. It was like 45 minutes. Awesome. And they try. I said, hey, I have to do this now. I have to call and say, what kind of bench are you using? What kind of bar? What kind of plates? Like I'm that guy now. I have to be. And I said, I'm trying to bench 1,000 pounds for the first time. I hadn't done that lift yet. And I said, okay, cool. Okay, Iron Wolf bar, cool. Hundreds, that's cool. That's fine. Body savers? He's like, no, but we got world-class spotters. I said, hey, sorry to waste your time. Not doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm all in with this shit. Trust me, we both are. But I will not die because of that.
Well, it's a controllable too.
Yeah.
Right. That's life, right? You can you deal with it's risk management.
Oh yeah.
Like what can you control? What can you not control?
Yes, and that I feel like me being responsible too. Like I won't go to a meet that doesn't use them, and just expect that. But it's something I can't control because I can choose where I go. Mm-hmm. No one tells me where I go. I go where I want to, and I compete where I want to. And I go with the feds that are equip lifter friendly, have the right equipment, the right bars, and body savers on the bench.
Yeah.
Simple.
And you've been in the sport for over a decade. Came in before band shirts. Mm-hmm. You didn't come in before multiply, but you came in before what I would call gangster multiply.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Because Karen Double denim was a bitch. It's probably the hardest shirt to ever learn how to use.
Yes.
And then it migrated into poly, which I'm using the word very tentatively, was a little easier to learn. There's still a big learning curve in multiply, but way different than the denim. So it became, here's where the argument comes, where with the band shirts, I feel like I've been like the judge on the jury, and I've heard both sides of the case so many times, right? Sure. And oddly enough, I really don't give a fuck. But anyhow.
Oddly enough.
It's oddly enough, right? I've been around this shit since I was 13 years old. Nothing's going to come around that I haven't seen before. Sure. The one thing that I didn't consider from the very first was acquiring the skill to use the gear, right? To where you take the multiply when you're trying to use it. Single ply is a motherfucker too, though.
It is.
There's a long learning curve.
Yes.
Some people never learn it. Where the counter to that was, the learning curve with the band shirts isn't as long. And I'm like, I don't know if I can say that's true or not true. First, it's an assumption. Mm-hmm. I sit very quietly on assumptions.
Sure.
Because what does that mean? But you've used all of them.
Yes.
Right? So the learning curves are going to be different with all of them. And I do think that them classifying as unlimited actually solves all the debates that I thought were valid.
It does.
Like it's changing totals.
Yep.
That was the biggest thing that was like, ooh, shit. Yeah, changing totals is a little weird.
Yes.
Changing bench records, I can fall on both sides of that one. Like, well, you know what? The first shirt changed every bench record of Raw people before Raw was a thing.
Sure.
They forget that argument, right? Because everything was Raw for a while.
Yes.
Then the first shirt came around, which gave you
40
10,
pounds.
40, 15, whatever. Well, when I first had my first shirt, it was like an insert blast shirt. All it did was like tear the shit out of your armpits. Maybe 15 pounds.
Super.
But I'm sure if I learned how to use it, 40, right? It's still a decent percent over, but enough to break every record that existed before that.
Sure.
So it was kind of that whole thing.
Yeah.
Where out of the three, which was the longest learning curve for you? Brandon, that's a fucked up question though too, because you learned in a Karen Denham.
Yeah.
That was a bitch.
Adam Hicks told me when I was 18. He said, if you can learn to bench in this, you can bench in anything.
Pretty much.
And it's been true to this day. It took me 6 months to get my first weight to touch in the gym.
Yeah.
Let alone going to a meet and all the stressors of the meet and the whatevers. But it was 550. I'll never forget that day. It was like being fucked for the first time. Holy shit, the pressure. Because, you know, I was always coming about that close to touching.
Yeah.
But that day that I finally committed and got that touch, the eyes and I was like, Jesus, that's what it's like to touch. No. Shortly after, so I used that same shirt. I benched 550 in it the first time ever. I used that exact same shirt with, you know, it had a tear right here and a patch over here. It was fucking awesome. I wish I could find that damn thing. And I used that exact same shirt relatively at the same body weight to eventually bench 700 pounds. As I was 19 when I did it. That's how I got sponsored with Anderson. And then they said, what do you need? Ken took me under his wing real quick and said, what do you need? I said, double ply something, because that's all I knew was double ply. So I didn't have to learn almost anything going into poly. So I think that the challenge was more as the weights increased, manipulating the gear, changing sizes, getting this altered. There was no, like, from going from denim to poly, there was nothing. There was no learning whatsoever, because that denim was so fucking hard to learn. And again, I went from 550 all the way to 700 with it.
Well, they're both still what I would consider compression.
Yes.
Where, you know, band is more extension.
Elastic.
Yeah. Different.
Elastic storage. There's some compression when you get into these all these multiple layers. You're going to have some.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more elastic storage, but yeah, and I was using katanas.
Okay.
I used any and all versions of katanas from 19 years old to 30.
Okay.
Or 31, whatever. 13 years, basically. All katanas. Double ply, single ply, grid stitch, triple ply, open back, close back, anything you could think of. It was all katanas. All variations, all different styles. That's what I knew and learned. I mastered that shit real quick. Went from, you know, I think my first competition with a katana, still at 19, I benched 740. And I'll never forget that day, because Lou called me shortly after, and he was like, he was talking to me on the phone and wanted me to come lift at Westside. He bragged to me, you know, he did his whole like 15-minute spiel on what they've done, and he mentioned, I think his name was, I don't want to get it wrong, Mike Brown. I think had the teenage bench record at 735. So I had benched 740 on purpose, because I had talked to him the first time I had benched, I think in the 6s. I think Rusty Bluck actually got me on the phone with Lou, told me the whole spiel, and mentioned Mike Brown's number, 735. And I was like, okay. Because he said, you need to come here to be the best. And I never agreed with that. And no disrespect, I don't want to do that to Lou, but I never agreed that I needed to be at Westside to be the best in the world. So I purposely, not training at Westside, benched 740 at 220, not 315. And I told Lou about it, and of course he wasn't impressed. Whatever. I knew he wasn't going to be, even at that age. But so that was, so yeah. There was no, anyway. Back to there was no real learning between the two. The katanas are very stiff, very hard to learn, just like a denim. Very similar in groove, nice and low on the belly, tucking and all that good stuff. So that's why the band shirts, I had a slight learning curve, because again, I was being told to flare.
Well, before that learning curve and before you actually made the jump into that, how did you feel about them before getting in them?
I was openly against them.
Okay.
Because at that time, there wasn't the separation. They said, oh yeah, that's multiply. And a bunch of us were like, no, that's not multiply. This is, because for years, and I was, of course, me being the researcher I was printing stuff out and researching all these things, and and Rich Lack, when he was at his prime and his top, first man to bench 1,000 pounds. Who the fuck doesn't know who Gene Richlack is? He had been accused, and not just him, this is just an example, but he had been, it was in an interview, in an article, he had been accused of like hiding bungee cords in his shirts and stuff, which that's elastic, that is illegal. So when they first came out, and I was like, well, these are shirts made of nothing but elastic material. But I came from a world of multiply poly.
Yeah.
You know, so at first when those came out and they were just lumped in with multiply, and a bunch of us were like, no, that's not, that's something else. It's cool, but like that's not multiply. So we got that big win like a couple of years ago when they finally decided, okay, this is unlimited. So when it became a separate division, and that solved all the problems. I'm like, okay, now it's fucking awesome. Now I want to do it.
Well, it's hard to debate against at this point.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So it is what it is.
It is, and I think it's awesome. I am really glad and very privileged and very excited and happy to work with like Rob Farrell.
Yeah.
Anderson picked up Rob Farrell as being, or the Farrell product anyway, being the main distributor for Rob. So I get to work with both. And I am really glad I got to know Rob and his mom and Tiffany and Logan really well, because they're just amazing people and they're just so giving. I don't know who else gives that much money back to the sport as Rob does, seemingly for nothing in return. He just gives and gives and gives. So it's been fun. I won't lie. It's been a blast doing this shit. Really enjoy it. But it was that separation of the categories is where I finally said, okay, now I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I think the actual, if I can pinpoint the event that pushed me over the edge to do it was, it's not on my arm, June of 21. That was the most pivotal moment in my career, arguably almost to the date, is where I benched 1120 in single ply. And at the time, that was the heaviest bench ever done in history, regardless of age, weight class, drugs, no drugs, multiply, single ply, nothing. Band shirts even, I had surpassed it all in single ply. A few months later, at the same meet location, York Barbell in Pennsylvania, did another meet there. I bombed out because I was too bloated. Still doing single ply. Tiny Meeker had flown up and surpassed that mark with 1125 in a multiply band shirt, multi-layered band shirt. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to do it. I'm going to wear the same shit all these guys are doing, and I'm going to see what I can do. And that was in November, so December, January, February, end of February, so about 3 months of training in one. That's where I did the 1320.
How long did it take you to get acclimated to it?
Not long. So that's the thing too, is in poly, I had worked up to weights in the 1200s. I think the most I'd handled in the poly was 1,300 pounds. I don't know how the hell I did that. It was fucking hard as hell. So I didn't have to acclimate to the weights as much because the weights were relatively the same. Now I think in January, about a month and a half before that meet, is when I handled 1,400 for the first time. That was wild.
Yeah.
That was crazy. But yeah, no, once I learned that I can just bench normal, that was the thing. When I realized, okay, fuck this shit, let's tuck and just bench like I'm wearing a katana, it clicked. And it started working every single time I put it on. So I'd say that probably took about maybe 3 or 4 workouts to figure that part out. And then the acclimation was over. Now it was just benching. Okay.
Well, there's for the weights that you're lifting, and it's the weights that I like. It's a carryover thing. It's bones become part of the recovery process.
Oh boy,
right?
Bone,
and it's obviously it's going to be more so for you that's on the upper echelon, the higher edge of that, but it's also going to be for somebody that normally just benches 300 pounds, but now they're trying to bench 500 and they're not taking the time.
Yes.
So.
Oh yeah, we've seen arm breaks left and right.
Well, the fractures before that, the issues are going to come before that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I had the benefit where I had scratched and crawled my way up in katanas from in the 700s all the way up to handling. I'm saying that handling and training 1300.
Okay.
Very slowly over time. I've never had issues with my bones. Now the first time I went to Rob's for the first time ever, about 4 or 5 months ago, and worked up to the heaviest weight I had handled in training at that point was 1450. One board, something like that. And I always have pain in my forearms. It's one of the heels of my training right now. It's just I have forearm pain a lot. That's the most exposed part of the bench.
You ever think about wrapping it just for training?
We have a motto. We have several mottos.
Yeah.
One of them is train how you compete.
Got it.
So if I can't use it in a meet, I don't use it in training. I should probably consider it. I'm talking to Tom about like recovery and stuff, but magnesium oils and things like that. But I forget where I was going with that. What was I talking about?
Well, we were talking about the bones, the fractures,
the bones.
recoveries, and acclimation.
Yeah. So no, I went to 1450, and I had some very familiar but like intense pain, and that was the most weight I had handled by about 20 to 30 pounds. And I was like, what if that was the weight that finally fractured something? I don't think you can feel bone fractures. It's when a bone breaks and all the soft tissue is damaged. I don't think bone has nerves, if I'm correct about that. But so I went to one of my sponsors down south is Alive by Design, and it's a chiropractic practice by Jericho is his name, the owner. And I said, hey man, I called him the next day. I said, hey, do you know of anybody who can just maybe get me an x-ray? Like whatever it costs. He's like, oh, just come here, I'll do it for you. So I went to Jericho, we did an x-ray on the arm, normal. There's nothing there. It's just pissed off soft tissue. So I've since went above that weight. I think the highest I've gone in training is like 1463, still with no issues. So bone is something that a lot of people don't consider that they really need to. It's one of those things that if you don't use it, you lose it. That's actually how it works. Same thing with muscle. It's degenerative. And why the astronauts have so much trouble and things like that. So,
well, that would explain why you go heavy as frequently as you do.
Yes.
But you still need to recover from what you're doing, which is the caveat.
Yeah, and so now it's not just muscle and tissue and skin, because you rip your skin off and stuff. Now it's even deeper. It's bones. Like all those things have to be kept in check and recover. So it's kind of wild. And I just, man, that's just, one of the nastiest things you can watch is someone's arm breaking in half.
No, I've seen several.
You have.
But I personally think, and this is just talking, right, that when you were dealing with the bench shirts at that time that were so fucking tight on the forearms, now you're cutting circulation off of the hands as well, which that can't help.
No.
And where with the shirts that came later, the bicep is not as tight, right? Especially the band shirts. It's more, it's behind, it's open. But even with the later iterations of the bench shirt, it's tight, but it's only tight enough to kind of hook the bicep.
Okay.
Because isn't that really all this really does here for the bicep?
Like an anchor.
Like an anchor, the bicep, and then everything else.
Sure.
And I think that negated the problem until the weights got heavier, and that became the next thing.
I mean, the last all of 2021, I was in single ply, and single ply has to be worn so much different than multiply for it to work. Where I in fact, squeezing my ass into a brand new single ply can take, it's kind of like those old days you talk about, the old shirts that took like 50 minutes to get into but gave you 40 pounds. No, actually, when I get into a new single ply, it takes 15 to 20 minutes and 2 or 3 people to squeeze me into one. Like, it is so damn tight, but that's how single ply works.
It kind of, for me, it always kind of sucked too, because you can't change it once it's on.
Yes. Well, and that, I think single plies, especially the katanas, are extraordinarily versatile pieces of equipment, but the pain in the ass part, because I don't adjust my polys by pulling the neck down.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I don't like that. I don't like to use that. So like SDPs, I think you bench with the collars. I think that's how they're supposed to be worn.
But I always had a problem with that because the collar stretches, it never goes back.
That's the same thing with the katanas. They're stiffer material, but even such. So I keep that collar up. I want to utilize as much chest plate as I possibly can, more surface area. So the way I adjust my katanas is by torquing the sleeves.
Yeah, but you can't do that once it's on.
You have to take the fucking thing off and put it back on.
Yeah.
If it's really tight, it makes it real fucking fun.
Oh, and if it's a closed back, that sucks.
Well, that's how I wear my single plies. I'm really drawn to single ply because it still truly entails what a bench shirt is. Like a shirt, closed back, closed neck. That's how. Now I could take some scissors and cut a V in the top, but I like to wear my single plies the way they were designed. It's closed back. But yeah, I've had to take the shirt off, torque the sleeves, put it back on with relative success with that. But I hate pulling the necks down. I just don't like that at all. I've never liked doing that. Yeah, I forget where we were going, but
with the sleeves, turning the sleeves and stuff like that, it's where the multiply it's
adjustability. That's
kind of a roll, but not so much as it was as a single ply.
Yes, yeah. Now I guess going back to when I was in multiply, there was a little bit more. I've done more single ply than I have multiply. When I look at all the lifts I've done, I think more of them have been single ply. But multiply, it was more like maybe a little bit of neck movement and a lot of like adjusting the back straps, wearing them loose, wearing them tight. The tighter you wear them, the more it sucks to your body, the tighter the shirt becomes before the lift starts. So I never messed with sleeves until I was really prominent in the single ply benching. But you're right. Once you put it on, you're pretty much, that's how it is. And that's, which is why the band shirts are so cool, because you can get them on and off in just seconds and rest and like relax between sets.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Nice for her. Nice for her as well.
Yeah. For everybody else around it. Let's take a bathroom break real quick, and then we'll come back and do some Q&As.
Cool.
Okay. We are back. We just had a pretty interesting conversation in regards to what 1,000-pound bench press is today, where the argument is a lot of the multiply that a lot more people now are benching 1,000 pounds than ever before because they're doing so in a bandy shirt or whatever people want to call it, a band shirt or whatever it's going to be.
Sure.
And what I said was the argument becomes a very interesting argument because the geared people are just complaining about better geared lifts. Meanwhile, the raw people have been complaining about geared lifts since the very beginning of time. You know, let's use a 800-pound bench raw. Like what, 1, 2? How many people have benched 800? Zero.
Very close.
So 700. I think our volume's a little too loud, Owen, in the headphones. So very few people have benched 700 pounds raw. But oh man, many have benched 700 pounds using single ply, multiply, band shirts, whatever it is. I think the real question people need to be asking, instead of trying to compare one discipline to the other discipline to the other discipline, is what does it take to be in the top 1%, right? So forget the disciplines. Who's in the top 1%? Okay, so if we want to go bandy shirts, who's in the top 1%? Okay. Multiply, who's in the top 1%? Let's set the number aside.
Sure.
Because numbers can change. You see where I'm going here?
Yeah, that's why I like the divisions.
Yeah.
You know, like band shirts are extremely prevalent. I respect them for what they are. I love doing it. I love benching with them. They're fun as hell. My attitude has definitely shifted because, like we mentioned earlier, I was against them at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Once they got their own division, I'm like, what's the problem now? They're fine. They got their own division. It's its own thing. But there still is multiply and single ply. Both, I mean, all three require just a shitload of skill.
Yes.
Now, I could argue especially the multiply single ply, but yes, there's skill in the band shirts as well. And I always find that if you're an excellent or a very good poly bencher, you're really good in a band shirt too. So I always like to have people, like those who come to me for advice or anything, I would say, try to learn a poly. I mean, do what you want, but learn the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Learn that skill, because whenever I see a well executed poly bench, it's fucking gorgeous. It's beautiful because I know how hard it is to do it.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's my whole thing is like, the 700-pound broad benches and the whatevers. It's like, at this point in my career, I've always just been concerned with myself.
Yeah.
Like, I have competition, but I'm always concerned with me the most. I am interested in doing the things that have never been done. Like, so on the raw side, an 800-pound bench has not been done yet. Very close. Very close. You know, the pioneers in the sport, you know, the first 800-pound raw squat, 1,000-pound raw squat, 1,000-pound bench, 1,200-pound bench, the pioneers and everything. So, you know, I'm interested in what I'm doing, and I want to do the things that have never been done.
Yeah, well, a couple ways to look at it is when you were in the military, you started squatting because you wanted to become better at, what was a 3-mile time?
Yeah.
The 3-mile time?
Yeah.
The 3-mile is basically the unit of measurement, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you can walk that, you can run that, you can use a golf cart, you can use a car,
right?
You can use a plane.
Sure.
And that all changes how you get to that unit of measurement. Mm-hmm. It's still the unit of measurement.
Right.
In the sport, the weight is the unit of measurement, which is to determine what that 1% is going to be, or whatever your personal accomplishments are going to be. Mm-hmm. So I think people are seeing it, you know, as not that unit of measurement to determine who wins, who places, because essentially that's what it is. You do a bench meet, the person in your weight class that lifts the biggest unit of measurement, however it's being timed or, you know, displayed, wins. Yes. That's competitively. Personally, there's that. Now, personally, it can get really cloudy, right?
Sure.
Because if you want to, you know, because your personal goals you can't have I want to bench 400 pounds raw. Mm. Well, you can't make that goal and then change it to 400 pounds band shirt.
Right.
You know, but that's in your own head. Mm-hmm. You have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Some can, some can't.
Sure.
You know, so what it all comes down to now that it's got its own division is that argument.
It's gone.
It's gone.
I don't think it's there anymore. I mean, again, like, you can go the opposite direction. I can compete with a single ply shirt and the divisions above that all I want.
Yeah.
There's no advantage. You can't bench in a band shirt in multiply or single ply because it's this direction. Right? Yeah. You can't go that way. That's why I said, like, whenever I do go back to poly, it's probably going to only be single ply. I have no desire at any cell in my body to ever do a multiply poly shirt.
Why?
Because they suck. It's so. I had a 2-ply katana about 2 years ago, and I could not break this fucking thing in. They are stiff. They are stiff shirts, and your touch point, you have just millimeters of playroom. There's no, like, you know, I think in phenoms you can, like, bench wherever you want pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
In a katana you can't. Mm-hmm. You have it's a balancing act. You're on a tightrope the whole way down. And you put a double ply on it, it's just more problems. I sent it back to Anderson, and I said, can you take a layer out of the chest? So I ended up with a 2-ply sleeve, single-ply chest shirt. So now that's technically multiply, but only multiply in the sleeve. So I might get into that in the multiply division. But, like, as far as the chest goes, I want the reliability I get from a single ply. 2-ply sleeves, more tricep support. That's kind of my idea behind it. But yeah.
Here's a question for you, because and probably most of the people listening to this are going to have no idea because they're not using gear to lift. And one thing that I found when we were selling metal was, you know, our sponsors would have to use metal, and the carryovers really didn't, if they came from one company to metal, the lifts never really went down. And the reason for that was that I learned over a period of time is it wasn't so much for multiply, because my question is going to be in regards to this. It wasn't so much the company, it was the customizations that were made to the gear. Okay. So in other words, if they always got a size bigger, then they sent it to somebody and had it taken in wherever they needed it taken in, had the arms twisted, had whatever, you know, done, then it would be fine. Mm-hmm. Where customizations with the multiply were vital, you know, to be able to finally be able to get it to work.
Right.
Is that true in single ply?
I'd say even, I don't want to say more so, but it is very, very important. Like, probably just as important, yes.
Okay.
Again, all of my shirts, poly, have been off the shelf katanas, and I just make them work. Now, if they get stretched out, they stretch out quicker. The longevity's not as much as multiply. Then I'll start on the custom, you know, bring that in, tighten this, tighten that. But all of my katanas have always been off the shelf. But when I was getting into, like, this last year, this 2021, where I was doing all the heavy single ply benches going up. I got a very specifically made single ply for myself. It was perfect. It was like a second skin. It was awesome.
Yeah. What the other big takeaway I had with this was lifters spend too much time jumping from gear to gear to gear thinking it's a magic pill. When they were forced to, not forced, but you get what I'm saying.
If you want to keep your sponsorship.
When it was expected that they use that, then they had to figure it out.
You had to.
And
yeah. I've met a lot of people throughout the years, and I've seen gear jumpers.
Yeah.
And they're successful, but they're never going to be, they never ended up being, I'm not bashing being good, but like they were never the best. They were never great. And a couple of them, it was always like getting stronger was not the answer. Getting more equipment was the answer. I'm like, you're already at a dead end road, and you're just making circles. You're not gonna go. You're not gonna break through that barrier. You have to. Isn't that what the sport's all about? Lifting heavy weights, getting stronger.
Yeah. Is unlimited the same way though with those shirts, or is it less?
I've seen examples where it's not the same. I've seen examples where it is the same. I don't want to bring up any names or anything, but I've seen people who have no business handling 1,000 pounds. I always say, like, and this comes down, sometimes I'm coming from more like bones, like just because the equipment might allow you to handle a certain way doesn't mean you should. You know, like bones provided and like injuries and stuff. But no, I think you still have to be a strong person. No matter what you're wearing, you have to be strong to do it. Now, what I argue, when I was at the height of my career in single ply, I would almost argue that I probably was a little bit stronger physically than I am now, just because of the nature of the equipment. Hopping back into a single ply like tomorrow would be rough for me because I'm not firing. It has more to do with I'm not firing correctly. I fire very different in a poly than I do in a band shirt. So they can complement each other, but I would do in the band shirt thing for over a year in 3 months now, which I never do. When I was back in poly only, I would flip-flop back and forth between single ply, multi-ply, because that was a change of stimulus for me. You change stimulus by changing your exercises, changing your reps, changing your program, whatever it is. There's lots of ways to change stimulus to trick the body to get better. One thing I found was single plies feel a certain way. Like when you put it on, you can tell it's one layer. Maybe it's tighter, maybe it's whatever, it's got a closed back. It feels a certain way. When I would switch to multiply, now maybe it's open back, maybe it's bigger, it feels different. And that in itself was a change of stimulus. And my bench would go through the roof. So every 6 months I would change between single ply, multiply. So I've not done that with the band shirts yet. I've used different layered band shirts and different cuts and whatever. So me going back to poly soon will be a really positive change that I need to maybe like kickstart a new wave of like PRs and like lifts and stuff. In your last podcast, you said something about sodium and you were drinking Element. So why do you keep the sodium high for yourself personally? What have you found as the benefits? I can hang. It just I don't know. I guess when I have a higher sodium content throughout the week. So I'll fill up my yellow canteen that I got from Chad Ikes over there, and I'll fill it up and I'll put one packet. I'll just drink. It might take me a day. It might take me a day and a half. Just to kind of sip on it and finish it. It's done. I'll fill it back up, put another packet in. I get really strong off of it. I don't know what it is. I remember listening to one of the Rhino rants, Stan Efferding, and he talked about one of the greatest performance enhancing things in the entire world, and it was sodium. And I was like, so there's a lot of information on that video that I can't recollect. But for some reason, when I have a higher sodium content per week, I get really fucking strong. I don't know what it is. I know maybe it helps retain water and stuff like that. It's going to help push carbs into the muscle too. Yeah. It's a transporter. I just get so strong off it. I just love it to death. I don't just drink that. I drink water. I drink juice. But yeah, so like I said, it might take me a day and a half to finish the whole thing. But in hindsight, my weekly intake is higher because I was doing the salt thing, like adding pink salt to my food and stuff, and it was just getting inconsistent. That's a very consistent way to do it.
Well, the other thing with those, and I know what you're talking about, the pink salt, and I used to drink the horse electrolytes and stuff like that. It's so strong that you don't drink.
No.
You know, so it's a deterrent.
It is. That's enjoyable to drink. I love it. It's awesome.
Well, I'll make sure to send you boxes when you go. But it's one of our sponsors, guys. It's go to the description or the link in the description. I screw this up all the time. Or it's drink element, lmnt.com/table talk, and you get a free sample pack. That way you don't buy ones that taste like crap, because some of them aren't so good. And we were talking earlier about the chocolate, so I'm going to give you a couple of chocolates just to try, so that way you don't waste your money if it's gross for you. There's only one that's been bad for me. Let's stay on the nutritional aspect, because you have a history not being a super, right? So I think that gets lost too. I think when lifters have been along for a very long time, they see you at the state that you're in. And this is across the board. And they want to emulate what you do, which good luck with that, you know, or they think that you've always been at this place where earlier when I said you totaled over 2,400 pounds at 220, I'm sure there's a lot of people like, what, huh?
Right.
We'll go look, you know, to be able to see. So nutrition's obviously been an important part, because for a while you're having to probably cut weight to make classes. And as you gain weight or try to gain weight, nutrition becomes hugely important.
That's it. Yeah.
You know, so how has that, trying to stay your body weight, how hard is that now for you? Because what are you, 32, 33?
I'm 330.
No. How old are you?
Oh, I'm 32.
So 32. So it's still not the easiest thing to keep the weight up.
So the answer to the test for me was weight gainer. And I never utilized weight gainer throughout my entire career. I don't know why. I've never actually, I've only on literally 1 or 2 occasions ever had to cut weight. And I very early on came into the philosophy of just lift where you're strong and comfortable. If you're really strong at 230, but you want to cut 10 pounds, fuck that. Just stay at 230 and lift heavy fucking weight. So I adopted that like at the age of 20 or something like that. So cutting weight was never really a thing. Now gaining weight was a problem for years. Now you might argue, like when I was working at Bell and Brick, the amount of calories I was burning, Jesus fucking Christ. That could have had a lot to do with it. So I would wake up at 2 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning every day. I would drink a protein shake and a peanut butter sandwich with a Snicker stuck between it. Delicious.
Yeah.
Go back to sleep. Yeah. Wake up in a few hours, go to work. And even then, I could not put any weight on. 235 was it. My body said, you're done. You're not getting any more weight. I was doing a bench 950, and at the Arnold, I was 235. So I think at that point, I think I was the heaviest athlete to bench 4 times his body weight with that lift at the time in history. I'm sure it's different now. Marine Corps, all that stuff, you know, trying to keep weight off. And then, so nowadays, when I got out of the Marines, I was about 280, 275. When I benched the first 1,000 pounds I did, I would weigh like 273. So by the time that was earlier in the year, 280 now, I started getting on the weight gainer. I got on the weight gainer not as a way to, I wasn't too concerned with gaining weight as I was just getting calories in. I remember you talking to J.M. Blakely on here a while ago. He mentioned calories, talked a lot about diet and stuff like that, and that really spoke to me. He used the example of the house trying to be built. You want it to be constructed quicker, you send more workers to the work site, but nothing gets, they need material, they need bricks to build the house. I'm like, that just for some reason, that just like clicked. I'm like, okay, I need calories. So like, I was obsessed with counting protein intake, 1.3 grams per pound of body weight, no matter what, and I never got any bigger, stronger off that. But once I said, fuck the protein, let's just focus on calories, I started going up. In months, I went from 280 to 290. 3 months later, I was 297. 3 months later, I was at 315. So now I'm at 330 without even really trying. I'm just 330 flat. I have reached the point of diminishing return, however. I was 342 in this meet in November where I bombed out. trying to bench that 1400.
Yeah.
I was stronger at 320 than I was at 340. I benched 1320. I weighed 315.
Yeah.
And I was 342. And now, granted, I had some issues I was dealing with the bar whip and the oscillation, but going that heavy did not have any return. So I realized, like, okay, fuck. Within a week, I lost 10 pounds because that's how much shit I was trying to hang on to be that heavy to try to get that lift. And then after a week, I dropped right back down to 330. I just kind of stopped maintaining that weight, and I'm 330 without even trying right now.
Does the weight fluctuations impact the banded shirt as much as it does the single ply shirt?
No, not even close.
Okay.
I mean, there still is a smidge of difference, but it's worlds different than the poly. Yeah. Because when I went to that meet, so I bombed out of York this November 22. I bombed out of York last November 21. Two meets in a row, same location, same date. I bombed out of both ones, so might not do that meet again because 2 meets, I'm done. But I weighed in in that November of 21, I was a bloated 315. Bloated. I overdid it. I wasn't on the sodium packets yet. I was on the steak. I was on the Texas Roadhouse the night before, but too much. And I was I was still single ply. That shirt worked really well at 305. 297 was perfect. And that shirt had no alterations with all those 1,000-pound benches I did. I did nothing to the shirt but gain weight. And that kept the shirt tight. But I went up to 315. I was so bloated in single ply. 1,070 wouldn't touch. 1,140 wouldn't touch. 1,150 wouldn't touch in single ply. I got the weight out, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get a breath because I was too bloated. So I was coming down with no air, blacking out halfway down, so it was a bad meet. And band shirts, I have not noticed that extreme of an example. There's a little bit, but it's not anywhere near that.
Well, it kind of makes sense, though, because one's more elastic and one's all compression.
Yes.
Where that compression, I mean, that's another world of shit to deal with to begin with.
When I came down with the 1150, I mean, I was desperate. I was doing anything I could do in my mental bank to make that weight touch. I finally reached the point where I felt, the shirt, you can feel it give once you get to a certain point. I felt for the first time in my entire career of lifting that poly shirt reached the point where it wouldn't stretch any further. I was like, it was the weirdest feeling in the world. It was like 2 steel beams were beneath it and just sat on it. I was like, I'm in trouble. And I bombed out. I was really pissed about it. I did it to myself.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that happened. But the band shirts, it's not as big a deal.
Yeah.
So
I have a for the podcast, I call it the crew. It's like a Discord server that people have to help support the show. And I'll go to them for questions. And one of the questions that, and I didn't quite know what he's asking about, so I hope you do. Okay. Is once you explain board presses as being a extension. Yes. I'd like to know what's he mean and what do you mean?
Okay, so when did Bill Wien Peanuts West? When was he back? They did board forever ago. So board presses have been a part of the sport since before either of us were probably born, right? So I know it's called a board press. I know that. Yeah. But I'm not trying to say this in the wrong way. I think that's wrong. Because when you call it a board press, and this is both for raw and equipped is a little bit worse at this, but raw athletes do it too. You call it a board press, and that's exactly what the athlete does. They touch the board and they press. So, and that's why you can see an athlete say, just numbers. I'm just throwing out numbers. Athlete that can bench 900 pounds, 3-board, 2-board. But they go to a meet and they can barely do in the 7s. It's like, well, where the fuck is that carryover? They're not getting the carryover because when they touch the board, they're using the equipment. Again, equipped guys are the worst at this. They use the equipment, and all they do is they push. So I'm trying to take people's harnesses out and plug a new one in by calling it a board extension. Whether you're raw, equipped, close grip, wide grip, doesn't fucking matter. Max out 1 RPM or 1 rep max, or if it's set at 10, doesn't matter. And it was very hard for me to learn that. I only learned it like 2 years ago. You have to learn to touch the board and not push. Stop calling it a board press. You have to touch the board and learn to extend with the triceps. And once I figured that out, that's what led into my success with the polys in 21, where I benched 1120. I had just figured out how to make a board press a board extension. I have a drill. I'm going to work with Tom after this, but it's a band drill. I'm going to put it on your social media. That's what clicked. Call it a board extension. Learn how to extend.
Would another way to explain that be, instead of trying to drive your knuckles to the ceiling, try to pull the bar apart?
Yes. And that's not just being done at the top. That's not just a 2, 3, or 4 board. I do that off 1 boards, half boards, full range.
Okay.
I pull the bar apart. You have to learn to engage the triceps at the beginning of the lift, whether it's a 2 board, 3 board, 4 board, full range, shirted, not shirted, whatever. Once you can learn how to do that at any point in the lift, I mean, arguably at the beginning, I don't want to press. And then that's why you see like these lifters that can't lock weights out that far from lockout. It's because they're pressing. They're heave-hoeing with the equipment. Their triceps are not ready to catch that weight at the top. And that's why they bobble and they can't lock shit out. It's like really soft elbows because they're just pushing.
Yeah.
It's called a bench press. I get that. But once I learned to kind of shift my focus and start extending on everything, that's where I had a lot of leaps and gains these last couple of years.
Well, it changes the intent. You know, thinking it through, it would also probably cause you to press more in a straight line, because when I first read it, I thought, are you basically doing like a JM, you know, off the board, where that's not exactly what you're saying, because you're not letting the wrist get behind the elbow. Right. But the intent is still, you know, that.
Yeah, I'm not telling people to not press.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, people get it twisted like, oh, so all I do is just tricep extend. Like, no, I'm not saying don't press the weight, but you have to press it correctly.
Yeah.
You have to press almost like leading with the triceps. Engage the triceps first. Now you have a proper tricep dominant bench press.
Yes.
Learning to extend. Off of all heights of boards, full range, wide grip. And actually, the way it happened, I'll just a really short story on how it happened, because it clicked as soon as I figured this out. I had a real bad pec knot. It was there for like 6 months. It was a little fucking marble. I could not get rid of it. And I'm benching at the gym down south, and I had Taylor with me, our girl Taylor, and she was handing out to me. I was doing like I was like, okay, this hurts. Cool. I'll do close grip, 1 board. You know, tricep. It was like 4 plates or 5 plates, whatever it was. So I came down to the board and I pressed, and it hurt. I was like, motherfucker, this is a tricep movement. Why is my pec hurting? I think I lowered the weight, got a hand off from Taylor. I came back down to the board and I paused for a quick second. And in that moment, I think I don't know. I'm trying to think of how I thought of it, but I touched the board and I felt the triceps engage. And from the 1 board all the way to lockout, it was a tricep extension. I was like, holy shit, I just figured it out. And from that moment forward, everything I did, no matter where it was, reverse grip, wide grip, close grip, 1 board, didn't matter, became a tricep dominant lift, which led me to all these big benches these last couple of years. That was the starting point, I guess, or the shift in the wind.
Does that play into the floor presses when you do those too?
Absolutely.
Or is that different?
Everything.
So
Everything. And that's the thing too. Like, you know, I think even Louis said the arms are the key to the bench press. So I've done a couple of seminars the last couple of years. I'm not really popular, so I don't have a lot of demand for seminars. But and I told them, like, I had a question about like the classic, like, what's the best tricep movement? And like, well, what would you? I was like, okay, cool. I could tell you the most proprietary secret tricep movement that I know of, and it won't matter shit unless you know how to use your triceps in the bench. You could have the strongest triceps in the world and still not bench a lot because you're not using them. So an athlete should first learn how to bench press with the triceps, and that's really hard because it's very unnatural to have triceps that overpower the bigger, stronger, you know, chest and shoulders, whatever. But once you can do that, the body's going to rely on the triceps to do the majority of the work, especially if you know how to do it correctly.
And this is if it's geared or not geared.
Yes.
You know, it's just benching.
Yes.
You know, which is, I agree with what you're saying 1,000%. It's hard to teach that intent that you're talking about.
Yes, it is.
You know, so that's why I keep trying to think of different ways for us to explain what you're saying. Because we can say this, and I'll look straight at the camera. We can say this. You guys are going to go in the gym, you're going to drop the shit, and you're going to do a freaking board press with a heave and pecs. Yes. Essentially is what they end up doing.
Yes.
Because it's easier. You know, and
you might be able to ram some weights off of boards, but it's not going to do shit for you at full range. You know, that's just, and again, it's more prevalent with the equipped guys. I see it being done more times than not in an equipped situation. But once I figured that shit out, everything changed. Like, yes, you're still having to get the bar from here to here, but the way you did it, the way I did it, was different than all the thoughts I had before. It changed everything. It was so cool.
Now, for yourself, you're personally not a fan of shoulder pressing, you know, at all. So why and how did you come to that conclusion? And what has it hurt your bench by not doing them?
Interesting. Let me think about it. Okay, I thought about it. Let's go. So yeah, I'm not, and people can argue with me about the overhead press. I think it's fucking stupid. If you want to do overhead press for the sake of developing an overhead press for whatever fucking reason, whether it be just a personal thing, maybe you're a strong man, or obviously whatever, but for bench pressing, I really think it's a waste of time. I think you can use a lot more of that time spent overhead pressing on other things, triceps, upper back. I use the analogy that shoulders are important for benching, but overhead pressing is not. But I came to that conclusion. I did overhead press a lot as a teenager, those first 4 years of just lifting, which I thought it was cool. I wanted to do everything. I wanted to overhead press, squat, row, deadlift, Jefferson deadlift, all those fucking weird shits. But I had to realize, like, certain things are just a waste of time. And second to overhead pressing, I put it in the same little category as dips, weighted dips. Don't do jack shit for my bench. They never have. I could get really good at dips. I could do dips at like 220 body weight with like 7 plates between my legs. And my bench went nowhere. And that's a lot of working weight. That's like over 500 pounds of working load with your body weight included. My bench went nowhere. So through personal experience, I have found more pain and more setbacks by focusing on overhead weights, and my bench went down. So when I stopped focusing on overhead weights, just more on bench pressing itself, bench press variations, still working the shoulders, more like a hypertrophy, bodybuilder stuff, rear delt, a lot of rear delts, my bench went up. And then I had a slight, which one? It was my right shoulder. I had a slight shoulder dislocation about a couple years ago. I was doing, you guys used to do it at Westside, I think it was behind the head dead stop extensions, where the bar's behind your head and you extend off the pins, right?
I wouldn't do that shit.
Oh, fuck, dude. And of course, the first time ever doing it in my life, I couldn't just take it easy. I did like 2+ plates, just going, just supporting that weight overhead dislocated my shoulder. So I was driving home, I was like, something feels weird. I let it relax and it slipped. I was like, oh shit. Pulled it back in. I was like, I'll sleep on it. Well, woke up the next morning, slipped, went to Jericho, and he put it back in, and recovery ensued after that. Like 3 months of bullshit. So overhead pressing has just fucked me up more times than I can count.
Yeah, for the triceps that you're talking about, what I found outside of bodybuilding hypertrophy is any tricep work that I tried to do, I had to try to keep as close to the line of press of the bench as I could.
Okay.
So I wouldn't do skull crushers to my skull. I would do them to my chin.
Closer to the bench.
Or to my throat.
Okay.
So it's still wrist behind elbow.
Yes.
Like even the JM press where he'd roll. I never did that. It was like a modified.
Okay.
Bring it down, let it come just a little bit behind the elbow. Palm out.
Right.
Less shoulder rotation, more tricep extension. But for me, and I couldn't, even like the dumbbell rollbacks, the bigger, fatter dumbbells, the roll stops here.
Yeah.
I never understood this behind the head shit. Like, I don't lock out back there.
No.
Now, if I'm trying to build a tricep for a stage, maybe, you know, but I just didn't get that.
No.
You know, there's specificity that I kind of looked at a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, anything that mimics the bench, I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, for the life of me, and I hope he's listening, but I have never in my life figured out how to do a JM press. God damn it. I can do them on incline just fine. Just bring the bar to the chin. Turned into kind of an incline, but flat, I've never figured it out. So it's not played a big role. Not like the SSB, JM. I can do those fine, but flat bench with a bar in your hands, kind of like a bench, but you're doing a tricep movement. That's what I do. Yeah. Overhead pressing just sucks. I don't like, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to build a 1,400-pound bench by doing overhead press with, I don't even know what, you know.
Well, there's a whole nother thing with 300 pounds, you know, 350,
even
whatever
it would be.
Yeah,
I'm probably just I'm gonna just fuck myself up and then probably go backwards. Yeah. Why would I do that?
What do you do for the rear delts then? Because that's a big player, especially for what the band shirt.
Oh yeah, that's all part of being able to maintain. That shirt wants to pull you forward. Yeah, you have to. You gotta. That's the hardest damn part of setting up on those damn things is keeping your shoulder blades back. I basically do everything for rear delts. I'll do that. My favorite one, and I talk a lot about on my Patreon about this particular movement, but it's the cable, the single arm cable rear delts. Yeah, you can get a stretch on the rear delt as opposed to any other movement. So that stretch and that contraction, I think, is superior to like dumbbells or like machine work. But I'll do those. I'll do dumbbell work to the rear, and dumbbell work to the rear for the rear delts, not the back. See, a lot of people do like rear delts wrong. Like you got to do them this way, not this way. Pec deck, I'll turn around and do pec deck one arm at a time. So just as long as I'm getting engagement, I'm good. I don't have like any particular one that I like. I like the cable the most, but as long as I'm working them, that's all that matters. So I guess some of my back work could indirectly work the rear delts, although that's not my intended goal. My goal is to work my back, but they do play a part in the back work as well.
What would be some other exercises that powerlifters suggest highly that you're like, nah, not important for yourself?
For my incline work? Yeah. Incline bench.
Yeah.
Dips. Yeah, I mentioned dips before. So dips. I like floor press now that I do it in an equipped manner. Floor press raw always hurt me. It just always never felt good. Any movement, no, I'll be careful. Let's see. 99% of movements that are either band or chain related, like accommodating resistance. I think last year I did on 2 bench occasions. I did a movement that involved chain weight. I'm not a fan of either one of those. Yeah. I despise bands. Chains are okay. Yeah. But I'm a bigger fan of free weight. So I'm not a reverse. I used to be a reverse band guy when I was like a teenager, early 20s. Now it's just straight weight on everything. Yeah. Again, train how you compete. We compete with straight weight. We don't compete with bands and chains and reverse this and chain that and all that crazy shit.
Why do you despise the bands more than the chains?
Because again, I've had bad experiences with bands in terms of just like I tried doing actually prior to that first 1,000-pound bench. I thought, okay, I'm back in this shit. I'm gonna try. I had bombed out of 4 meets prior to this meet. Yeah, 1 year of failure. I don't use that word very often. I use miss, but I failed for an entire year, 4 meets in a row. I was getting desperate, so I tried Louis'. I'm talking like to the T speed work for the first time in my entire career. Maybe this is what I need. And I tried doing it. I did the percentages and the pendulum waves and the different bars, and my bench started to go down. I was just hurting and all these like deep, searing fucking pain. I don't like how bands pull you in one direction. And if you do the reverse setup, I don't like, because the bands want to speed the weight up. Yeah. And again, that's not how straight weight works. We lift in a sport that uses straight weight with a straight barbell. So that's how I like to train. But movement specific stuff, again, overhead work, incline work, dips, those have no value and speed work. It has no value in my training whatsoever.
You've also been vocal about not liking conjugate.
Yes.
Is it for the reasons that you just said, or there are more associated with that?
I always say, like, people have to remember, I'm coming from a bench only world.
No, I get it.
Viewpoint.
Yeah.
I always like to say, I think there's value with that with the squat and deadlift.
Yeah.
But for benching, I don't think it fits. I think there are way better things to do with your time than do speed work, than do bands, than do chains. Again, being from the point of view of we compete for a max effort lift with straight weight. And like I said, now this past year, I did, for sake of variety and for the sake of just throwing a wrench in my own training, I did a couple days in a year where I used chain weight. One of them was a narrower grip slinger floor press.
Yeah.
With like all the chains we had. Now again, a floor press, the bar is that close to the ground.
Yeah, it's going to be a little different too because the more the chain stays
Yeah,
on
there was
it,
a shitload of chain on the floor. So once I maxed out the chain weight, I started adding plates on top of that. Whatever.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you enough. That's the other thing I don't like either. Is like, okay, you can kind of. I mentioned you have that scale over there. It kind of interested me.
Yeah.
I know you can you can weigh the chains and make it a very close approximation. But anytime you have bands on the bar, it's like you don't know what the fuck you're lifting. Besides what the weight you have lifted.
Yeah.
Weight you have loaded on the bar. You throw bands on there, and it's like I have no fucking idea. I like to know what I'm lifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I do use bands, which I think one time this past year, it was actually just 2 months ago towards the end, I think I was doing, again, slinger banded lockouts, like at the top 2 inches range, like just short range of motion. And I double choked 2 bands per side and went up to 500 plus pounds of actual bar weight. No clue what I was lifting. All I knew is that it was hard. That's the only thing I knew. I loaded weights on there until it was fucking hard, cool, and then I was done. Little did I know, some of my patrons on my Patreon had said hey, you realize you double choked 2 bands per side, and from what we can tell what bands you were using, you had 600 pounds of band tension on there. I was like, no fucking way. Because I did a set of 10 with the 5 plates plus all those bands. You were locking out between 1,000 and 100 pounds. I was like, are you sure? So I had no fucking clue. I like to know what I'm doing. Yeah. Weight being lifted. Very important to me.
Well, that's it. The reason why I ask these questions is I like to figure out how people have come to the conclusions that they do because it works.
Yes.
Right? And anybody who thinks there's only one way is an idiot. Yeah. Because everybody's got their own way.
Oh, sure.
With that. And with, the example that you just presented with the philosophy that you train under, which is very auto-regulated, when you don't even know how in the hell you're going to base what's going to follow, or if you need to even do a lot of recovery. Let's say you do that and your forearms are all beat up. Was it the bands? Was it the weight? What the hell was it?
Yeah, I'm in a very structured environment. And I know exactly what I'm doing at all times. Yeah. So I'm very accurate at pinpointing exactly what happened. When you throw in kind of an unknown, like bands or chains, it's like, well, what was it? What's causing this? Yes. With straight weight, it's pretty damn clear what did it. Yeah, I like that.
When you get yourself into a circumstance to where you think you have to deload,
deload.
What does that look like?
Deload. Yeah.
Outside. Wait. Well, let me frame context. Outside of peaking for a meet, I think that's rain.
That's rain.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. In January.
Yeah.
In Ohio. It's weird. Let's see. Deload. So, yeah. And again, I don't peak for meets. I don't cycle to train for meets. I don't need 8 to 12 weeks to train for. I lift heavy all the time. So
you don't pull your last heavy day before a meet?
So I don't change anything before a meet.
Really?
Nope. I don't change a damn thing. Now, when I was a little bit younger and I had people above me kind of showing me the way, the whole thing was, okay, training heavy. Okay, the week before a meet, take it real easy. Come into the gym on Tuesday, bench 135, set of 5, and do some pull downs with 200. 15-pound curls, then go home, and then just eat and drink the rest of the week. And I was so fucked up coming into that meet. This happened more times than once.
Yeah.
So I realized something. I'm like, okay, hang on a second. Let me auto-regulate, like you just said. If I train heavy year round and I'm getting just fucking strong and the weights are just going up consistently, and I'm only going to do one meet that year, and I train the same way for the entire fucking year, why would I change anything the week before a meet? So I come in, so my schedule is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm off Mondays, Fridays. I lift Saturday, Sunday. I slay weights all fucking year, every weekend, super heavy. I'm a creature of habit. So me taking that week off will completely screw me over. I'm in the gym. So I compete Saturday or Sunday. If it's a 2-day meet, I'll compete Sunday. I'm in the gym on Wednesday, my secondary bench day, handling up to 1,000 pounds because that's normal for me. I lift super heavy weights on Wednesday bench, crazy fucking heavy weights, super heavy, whatever it is, the variation for the day. Thursday, Friday, compete, or I bench on Saturday mornings. You guys bench on Sunday mornings, but that's normal. That's what my body knows. I'm not going to change that the week of a meet because that's dumb. I'm not gonna have a good meet if I do that. So that took, I figured that out about 4 years ago, and it worked. I was like, fuck yeah, I got this shit.
Yeah.
So that took a while, but I got it.
You have a optimistic mindset, right? So and I can see that with the people that are around you. And meanwhile, there's still ups and downs that come with life, right?
That's always going to be a case.
I mean, that's always the case. And I don't want to say where does that come from, but how do you deal with, outside of the extreme example that you talked about earlier when you were in the military, outside of that, how do you deal with the certain adversity that always comes?
Well, I remember watching Pumping Iron for the first time at like 14 years old. And then Pumping Iron, Arnold had talked about his mindset. When he gets to the gym, like, yes, life is never going to stop coming at you. Life is supposed to be good, but shit's always going to come up and happen. But when he gets to the gym, when I get to the gym, nothing that's going on in life fucking matters. It doesn't. I don't care if my car's on the fritz, if we have financial hardships, whatever the fuck the case is. When I get into the gym, that's where I forget about everything. I have no choice these days, especially with the weights I'm trying to handle. I cannot be distracted by just life things. That's dangerous. So when I get into the gym, it's showtime. Yeah. That is my life. I'm a very in the moment type of person. I don't worry about things. When I'm driving in my car, that's what I'm doing. I'm enjoying the drive. I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. I'm enjoying just listening to my music. Get to the gym. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And nothing's going to distract me. I have no choice. I have to focus on the task at hand. Whether it's myself, helping my crew, getting them in their shirts, whatever the case is. Leave the gym. Okay, now let me just drive. Enjoy the drive. Don't worry about shit. It's just you have to be optimistic and positive.
Now, I'm making the assumption that your wife is with you with all heavy sessions.
Definitely the Saturday bench sessions.
Okay.
So my weeks actually begin with Saturday mornings.
Okay.
That's how I like to structure it mentally. We see what happens Saturday morning for heavy bench. I structure the rest of the week kind of based on that performance. Yeah. She's always there for Saturdays. We run a home business, and sometimes she can't make it to like Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah. But Saturday she's always there. Yeah. Unless I tell her like, hey, I absolutely am not going crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, my wife is 60% owner of the company, so we run the business together. For a long time we were in the gym together. We obviously lived together. Right. And so when you're talking about the focus and the mindset on the Saturday, right? You can't bullshit me and say that you guys don't have arguments, okay?
Oh, shit.
Say you have an argument. Is her mindset, does it flip too when you go into bench on Saturday if she's pissed? And you're both on the same page, or is it, I'm not coming in today?
Every couple is going to have.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yes.
But we have had open communication. I think that's the key to a long-lasting relationship from like literally day one.
Mm-hmm.
No secrets. Talk about anything and everything that could possibly ever bug you, or arguments. So if we do ever have an argument, I mean, we work it out.
Yeah.
We talk. Like, fuck the pride or the ego. Can we just please talk about this?
Amazing,
Let's get over it and we just move on. Why dwell and be miserable? I'm not gonna. I choose to live not miserable. I don't do anything that makes me miserable. I refuse to live that way. Why? So no, that's never a problem.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm hitting that is, over the last 5 years, maybe 6 years, a lot of the questions that I get training related aren't so much training related. They're more visualization, especially since JM came on the first podcast. It's like, well, what do I need to do to visualize? What do I need to do this? How do you get amped up before a bench? How do you do this? And my advice normally is, first off, just get your fucking life in order.
Yeah.
Remove as much stress as you possibly can.
Yes.
So when it comes time to focus on the lift, you can.
Yes.
And most people don't do that, right? So that's why I asked that, because if you get that in order, then when it comes to, because you said earlier, before you lean back on the bench, you're going to visualize, one last time. It's going to be a clear vision. It's most of the shit that you can control is in order.
Yes.
If you're frustrated or upset because of all this other stuff.
Oh yeah.
That never happens.
No, there's been a very definitive line that's never been crossed with me when it's come to gym time.
Yeah. When
I'm at the gym, that is what I'm doing with my life in that moment. Again, I'm a very in the moment type of person. Some of that, I've developed it long ago, but like when I was in the Marines, say, and we were in a bus with full gear, flat Kevlar weapon, going to a training somewhere or a range that was 45 minutes down the road. I'm not thinking about, God, this sucks. Fuck, I'm tired. Or what are we going to do on the range? All I'm thinking, I'm just like, all right, I'm driving. We're in a bus. It's dark out. Go to sleep. Take a nap. Just don't worry about things that's not even happening yet. Why stress about something that hasn't even happened? It's very hard to do. It's very hard to do that. It's taken me years of constantly working on it to just make it a thing.
If you were to mentor somebody to expedite that process, what would you say?
I mean, it's extraordinarily simple, but it's just don't sweat the small shit. Shit, I mean, your life is supposed to be good. You're allowed to live a good, happy life, but shit's always going to come up forever. It's never going to go away. Even those who are made of money, I mean, you're still going to have shit that comes up. Nothing can be perfect because we're fucking human. So there's a lot more to it, but it just starts with that. Just don't sweat the smallest. I have some young folks in my crew who, maybe something happens or with school or with their job, and I'm just like, man, fuck that shit. Let's just bench. Just have a good time. I don't want to add to the stress either, which is why, I don't have any cool, funny West Side stories. I've never been. I never got to meet Lou. I've been to West Side one time, the Sunday of the 20 Arnold Classic. Lou was not there. George Halbert was there. So I don't have any cool, fun stories. We don't conduct ourselves like those old stories. The gym is a very positive, fun environment for all of us. I'm not going to have some young kid come in that's full of stress and pissed off and something's going wrong that add to it by being a fucking asshole.
Well, no, I think it should be a fun environment.
Yeah, we have a blast, dude. We have a fucking ball lifting. It's so fun.
Especially with the kids that come in, because we have a couple here that come in if they're stressed or, life is life, right? You, as we've learned in our own careers, if you can create just a break.
Yes.
A real break too. Like when you're in the gym, you're really in the gym.
Yes.
You're not thinking about the other stuff. For those couple hours or whatever it is, it's like a reprieve.
make it something they look forward to coming and doing.
Yes.
Why come here and be like, oh, I don't want to get bitched at, or fuck, that guy's a dickhead, or something. You know, just come to the gym and have a blast.
Yes.
Let that be the release.
Yeah, because the problems are still going to be there when you go out the door.
Yeah.
But they don't have to be there inside.
No, and if you, I think a good example from long ago, the Apollo 13 mission that got fucked up on the way to the moon.
Yeah.
I think it was 13. That was that movie, Apollo 13. And the crews were talking like, I mean, they're on their own up there, and they were talking about like, you know, they could stress out and start yelling and screaming and be stressed for like 10 to 15 minutes. And when they're calmed down, they're still going to be in that exact same situation if nothing's been improved. So be calm and just figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why go through the stress of being stressed for it to just be there when you're done? Fix it. Try to be positive. Just move forward.
Well, the strength training, as you're well aware, can change people's lives, right? Mm-hmm. Not everybody is going to have the mental, physical, genetic capacity to be in the top 1%, but everybody can learn how to use the gym to be able to better their lives.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's essentially what we're talking about.
Right.
So when you have those people coming in the gym, you know, that's a different experience. Everybody has a different experience.
Yes.
You know, it's everybody that went through Westside's got a different story to tell. Everybody that's met anybody's got a different story to tell.
Right.
Where you can help create what that story is going to be.
Yes.
You know, with those people, and there's obviously a very good environment where you're at, or you wouldn't be there, because you don't have to be there.
Correct.
So what keeps you there?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm there. I'm not, let's see. I'm there for myself.
Yeah.
I'm there because I have things I want to accomplish and take from the sport.
Yeah, but you can do that anywhere.
Yeah.
And you can operate your business anywhere.
Sure, we could. I think, so we stayed where we're at. Again, I got out of the military over 2 years ago, October of, 2020. We could have left. We could have came straight back to Ohio. We could have went to our old stomping grounds with Iron Chamber, Blackstones. We could have moved up here, been with you guys or Laura Phelps, anybody. But we've developed such a strong relationship with our crew. And I've been at Unleashed Strength literally from opening day. I showed up. It was Joe and his wife Margot, or the owners. Opening day, they had food. I mean, it was fresh paint. Just that. It was so odd for me because I've never had that before. I've always been to the dirty, dingy, really broken in gyms.
I get it. That's Ohio.
Yeah, that's very normal. But down there, I was like, this is weird. Like, just the paint is throwing me off. No highway miles on this place. And I've watched it grow. I've watched the crew grow. I've watched the owners. I've just watched this process from day one. And the friendships we have, the crew I have, is unprecedented. I've never been in a group that's this strong. And obviously it's worked. And every single 1,000-pound bench I've done in competition has been while training under the Unleashed Strength roof. So that's just, it's so special to me. It really is. It's really magical almost. But it's kind of corny, but it really is.
How is the turnaround bend of the crew that you have there? I mean, you're gonna have some people that are always stay, right? But there's always a big turnaround. I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Is there a big turnaround of people that come and go?
Oh, so far we've had maybe. It's steadily grown, and those who have joined have pretty much stayed. I've had one really good training partner and his girlfriend, now married, so wife, leave for job-related reasons. Left the whole state, actually. And I had another fellow who was just fucking weird, who just parted ways because he's weird. Other than that, those two, it's been very, very consistent.
Yeah.
It's just we've drawn such good people to us, and it just works.
Have there been people that you've had to release to other gyms?
No. Again, because we and you know, the group just draws in more good people.
Yeah.
And we've not had to do the whole. Now I've seen other people come in where I'm like, Joe, the owner. I'm like, Joe, get him the fuck out of here, dude. This is you're at a liability with this motherfucker. Some dumb TikTok young kid or some shit like that. But no, with my crew, we've not had to say like, hey, this ain't fucking working, or you're not conducive, or you're an asshole. Get the fuck out. That's never happened. That's why it's so special too. Because at other gyms, I've not been the one causing it or the one to step up, and because I was just always the kid. Yeah. But I've seen people come and go a lot. I've seen people like, hey, we don't want you in our crew. Push them out. That's never happened with us. That's just it's wild. It's so cool how that works.
Yeah. Well, I'm also going to assume you don't have an overabundance of people wanting to come join your crew either.
No.
Which is, no. Well, I say that, right, because that's that false internet assumption.
Oh, no,
like,
no.
Oh, no. I'd never want to go train there because they'll never take me. There's not enough,
Oh, no. So, again, like I way back on the start of this, I think I mentioned that the state of Virginia is pretty much ruled by two feds, USAPL, USPA.
Yeah.
Both feds that I fucking hate to death. Like, if you want to go down that route, we can. Anyhow. We will. Okay, cool. So the majority, I'm looking forward to it. The majority of competitive lifters in our gym are USAPL associated, and they just kind of lift on them. They just kind of do it. They have their own group. USAPL's over here. We're just our own crew. People aren't banging down the door to try to get in. I help anybody that asks. Anybody that I'm not. I could go a whole day, week, or month without saying a fucking word. But if somebody approaches me, I will talk to you. I just don't really approach people.
Yeah. I
don't know. But if you talk to me or if you ask a question, I'll answer it. I am more than happy to answer any questions. I just won't. If you don't talk to me, I'll be silent. I don't care. I got better things to do than go approach people and make conversations. It's just the way I am. But yeah, no, it's just we have our crew. There's other cliques around the gym and stuff like that, but like I'll have people visit the gym once in a while that like, hey, I heard you're only 3 hours away, can we come? I'm like, yeah, fuck, just sign the waiver at the door and let's bench. Like, more than happy to have you. But yeah, so that's how it works.
With going back to the federations, you've been through many, right?
Oh yeah.
And there's the obvious question is, why do you think it's so tribal? But that's stupid because we already know all federations kind of are. But the odd thing with this too is if you take people from all different federations and then they just accidentally all come into the same gym somewhere to train, they have no problems.
Sure.
It's just when they're in their own cliques, then there's the problems.
Yeah.
Where as a competitor coming up, you have a lot of options.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So granted, you're always going to lean toward the option that you came in on, but why not explore some of those other options that you were talking about with the background and history that you have? You have all options available, put it that way.
Yes.
So why not?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why you would want to be fully committed to, say, just like one.
Yeah.
Again, when I was up here as a teenager, early 20s, I was a stone's throw away from there was a meet every weekend, whether that be UPA, APA, IPA, USAPL, USPF. That was still a thing. I would do anything as long as it was within a reasonable driving distance, being a kid with like no money. Now, I have no choice. I have to leave the state to compete, whether that be north, south, east, Ohio, whatever the fuck it is, because I'm not going to compete USAPL, USPA. I've had experiences with both those feds, and I will never do that shit again. But I don't know why you wouldn't want to explore more options of the sport that it has to offer. I don't understand that. I don't get it.
Well, there's this you've done a very good job with, as there's politics associated with the sport, right? And as you come into the sport, you have no idea what those are.
Yeah.
Like the kids that are training within your club or the younger guys that are training here, they have no idea what the hell is behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz. I explained this in one of the podcasts earlier. And then as you become better, it's very exposed, what's in all of that.
Yep.
But you still, and it can get to you, right? I mean, nobody's going to bullshit about this. It can get to you,
Sure.
but then you can quickly realize what we talked about earlier. I have no control on this.
Yeah.
And then you just make your choice and you go the other way. Yeah. You've done an amazing job at staying out of all that crap and being in an arena that has a lot of shit, less now, thrown at, actually the biggest shit thrown at it, because the band shirt, so it's multiply, which is already shit, geared, which is already shit, then the band shirt, now here comes the dump truck.
Okay.
Right. So, and that's from the peanut gallery, right? Well, there's also from, you know, the top end too, where some feds are going to want you to compete, you know, other ones are going to, because it helps them.
Yes.
Right. Meanwhile, you've been able to maintain this focus on, doesn't matter, what I need is the right bench,
Yes.
the right bar, the right plates, you know, and be able to keep that number one thing in focus without the distractions.
Oh, yeah.
That goes back to the mindset. But how do you, or is it your wife, how do you check yourself when it gets off kilter? Say it becomes so let's say you're at 0 and it becomes a standard deviation away. Like you find yourself coming home like, I can't believe this bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Just, again, things, I don't know. I've always, from day one all the way till I'm talking to you now, I've always only been most concerned with me in the sport. I wasn't in the mindset. I think there was an example. This is secondhand. I'm not sure if this is true, but I heard that, like, I think Mark Bell had a what he called a kill list, where he'd have a list of people that he wanted to beat. Yeah. He'd beat one, cross it out, go to the next guy, cross it out, go to the next guy. So once you get to the top, we beat all you can beat. It's like, what else is there now? Like, well, I beat everybody. Now me, I've always just like, I want to improve. What's my number? What's my number? If I beat people along the way, if I break records, those are kind of bonuses. Now, I'm not going to lie and say I've never thought about breaking a record. I have. Who hasn't? So because I've always had such a inner mental focus on just what I'm doing, like, fuck the distractions. I don't care what he's benching. I don't care what he's benching. I have a goal, whether takes me a year to get there, 2 years, whether I'm the first to do it or the first not to do it, doesn't matter. I've always just been focused on what I want to get from the sport and just doing what I want to do anyway, and not like, and I have people I help, but I'm not in this sport. I didn't get in this sport to please others. I'm in this sport for myself.
Yes.
So that's kind of what, so there I hear a lot of things, and I see a lot of things, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk it out, I guess, but it stays between us. So I never just sit on something and just kind of like let it fester. I get it out, but it stays between us.
Yeah.
In our living room. So if it, you know, stuff comes up in conversations, like in our crew, like, oh, did you see this? You hear that? I'm like, yeah, bro, fuck that. But
yeah,
that's kind of the mindset I've had.
Well, and as you just stated, the sport is selfish. You know, you're only in it for yourself. Not only, but you're in it for yourself.
Yes.
Right. So all these things are aligned in a very selfish, egotistical way, and we see that in the sport rampantly, right? But you're not that. You actually give a shit about other people.
Yes.
You care about the other people.
Yes.
While you still are able to maintain your focus on what you want to do, you're also able to be very humble and be a very great example for the sport. So that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you keep that balanced? Or is it just a personality trait?
It has to be that, because I don't have an explanation.
Yeah.
Like, I don't do this sport for anybody but myself. But I would kill for anybody in my crew. Yeah. Any of my friends, anybody that I've ever worked out with, you know, even years ago, Blackstones, Iron Chamber, whatever it's been. I don't know. It has to be personality. I don't know what else it could be. Because I could say out loud, like, I do this sport for me, but if I wasn't competing, you damn sure bet I would still be in the gym helping out my crew. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not just gonna say, oh, I'm done lifting and these are the best friends I have outside the sport. And this is, I'm saying, like, anybody who's involved with me with lifting, whether it be, Jericho with my chiropractic service, Anderson Powerlifting, any of my sponsors, any of my friends, anybody I've ever associated with in the sport ever. But outside the sport, I don't have any friends. I don't have drinking buddies or just chill out, hang out buddies. Mm-hmm. Everybody I am friends with is in the sport in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And that's how I want it. I don't talk to anybody from high school. I don't talk to anybody besides those who I've been involved with competitively or in a gym. That's who I keep in contact with. Mm-hmm. And I love it that way. And helping others, I get like personal, I guess I'll use that word pleasure, I guess, not in a weird way, but by helping others and seeing them grow from it. I really enjoy that. It brings me such joy to see Taylor or Brian or Zach or Dean, Owen, whoever I'm helping, Paul, just take knowledge and apply it and get better. Mm-hmm. You can't buy that. It's so cool to see.
Well, it's the point I'm trying to make is we can go through this podcast and pull clips out of things that you just said. I'm only in this for myself. I do this, and put that out there. And if it was almost anybody else sitting at the table saying that, people would say, that's an egotistical motherfucker right there. But because it's you, when people ask, about you, when I ask about you, and stuff like that, your numbers are not the first thing people say. What they say is he's a fucking great dude. Yeah. So that actually is above and beyond, the numbers for the people that know you. Mm-hmm. Right. Now, granted, we're in the small niche.
Sure.
Which is contained, which is smaller and contained. But in the niche that we're in, that's not always the case. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's usually the opposite. The stronger somebody gets, the more records they accumulate. There was a man, I don't know if you know the name Jeff Pescick at all. No. Okay. He was a huge single ply lifter, but he was a huge single ply bencher, mostly in the Wabdell Federation. Mm-hmm. He did NASA, he did WNPF here and there. And I met Jeff. I was 18. I was at the 2008 Iron Chamber Bench and Deadlift Championships. It's the biggest non-sanctioned push-pull meet in the state. Maybe not anymore. Back then it was, from like 2008 to 2013-14. And I was weighing in. At the time, I had high school friends, mm-hmm. My mom's there. I'm 18 years old. Got no clue what the fuck I'm doing. My first attempt at a meet in a shirt, and that's Karen Klein. And I'm weighing in. Yeah, it was a good day though. I used to use one. That's why I'm laughing.
Oh, I love that shit. Wish I had it. Damn, I had lost. I think I gave it to somebody. Anyhow, I was weighing in and stuff. And Shane Klein was a really good friend of mine later on when I started going to Iron Chamber, a fellow Anderson athlete, and Jeff Pescick was an Anderson athlete as well. He's weighing me in. He's loud and boisterous, and he's weighing me in and writing stuff down. And I turn, and I'm like 220, 18 years old. And this mammoth, this is the biggest human being I'd ever seen in my fucking life, Jeff Pescick. He just appeared. He was just there. And I, me being the man I was like shitting my pants. Like, fuck, I had never seen a human being that size. I was scared to death of this guy. And he started talking. He kind of he nudges me. He goes, "Hey, did you make weight?" I was like, mm-hmm. I was, what? And he's like, "Where are you competing at?" I was like, 220 bench only. Oh, that's fucking awesome. Good luck, man. Just so quiet and just the nicest. And he turned out to be one of the most kind, nicest dudes I've ever met in my life, in any circumstance, mm-hmm. not just in the sport. We unfortunately lost him. I think he succumbed to brain cancer or a tumor a few years ago, so we lost Jeff. But yeah, I don't have any tolerance for getting huge in the sport, breaking records, and just looking down on people. I hate that. I will never, unless it's some trolling weirdo being weird on the internet or something, but I will never turn somebody down, because I was in that position where I was a nobody and I had people left and right helping me. Why would I turn around and be an asshole.
Well, I think a lot of people forget that, what you just said, because that's how most end up in the sport in the first place.
Right.
It's because somebody helped them.
They did. I've been helped from day one by incredible people. The Blackstone crew, the Iron Chamber crew, and now the crew that we've built. Could we had like 2 people to start with. But we've built an incredible community, and I will never understand that mindset of like superiority, maybe if that's the right term to use. Like I'm the best. Fuck you. Who are you to? No, what? That make any sense?
Well, I'd love to hear what you just said, because I founded the company on this vision to live, learn, and pass on for that exact reason. Because the guys helped me when I was 13 years old get into the sport, and all the people around my way, all the way through Louis and everybody else, they didn't have to help me, but they did. And then at what point do you have to pause and ask yourself, what do I owe them? Or not owe, but I should continue to do.
Pass that on.
What was done, and we live in this different age now where people won't do that because they can monetize it. Right?
Yeah.
So that's for me, that's been a frustrating thing over the 25 years I've been in business, is to see that whole thing change, where it went from people helping people in the gym. Yeah. Because it was just kind of like the right thing to do.
Yes. Yeah.
And it changes lives, right? To being, I'm not going to help that person because they're not paying.
I got people that message me that say, hey, I know you're busy. Hey, you probably won't see this. I have a question about a shirt or a katana. I'll pay you for your time. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? It's just I send voice memos mostly.
Yeah, it's easier.
I don't like texting. I like to talk to a person. But yeah, they're just like, oh, I'll pay you for your time, or they offer me money after I'm like, dude, bro, it's fine. It's cool. Why would I not help you?
Was this part of the reason why you started your foundation?
So that reason came about because when we were, the foundation, the Kolbstrong Scholarship Foundation, it's a nonprofit, right? Yeah. That's designed for the younger crowd. That's the teenage through junior division powerlifters, actual like competitive lifters. And when we were that age, when I was 18, 19, most of my early 20s, we struggled. For a sport that literally, besides the gratification you get out of it, right, but it financially does nothing for you. Now, it does something for me now, but it's taken me 18 years to reach the pinnacle of where I'm at, to get some revenue, winning money meets or whatever the hell it is, and doing the occasional seminar for just a little bit of money here and there. So when we were that age, she would go to food banks behind my back without me knowing, because we had nothing. We'd go to meets by spending our rent, and looking at each other and just going, well, we'll figure it out when we get back. Our rent's gone, but do this meet, have fun, come back and just deal with it, figure it out. So, $1,000, and that's the thing, for every $1,000 we raise, we sponsor a young athlete with a $1,000 check. $1,000 would have done us multiple worlds of good.
That's huge when you're in that position.
Yes.
I've been in that position.
Oh, I couldn't afford a $25 gym membership. Yes. Like, we were to that point.
No, $1,000 can pay for the entry fee. It can pay for you to get there.
Yep.
It can pay for the food.
Yes.
It can not put you in the hole.
Yeah. If you need a new bench shirt, if you need a new squat suit, if you want to travel, if you need a hotel, you want to blow it on a PlayStation 5 or whatever the fuck's out right now. I don't keep up on game consoles, but it's your money to decide what you want to do with. It's meant for the sport. But again, once the check leaves our hands, it's in yours, and you do what you want with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the dings against the sport is the cost of entry. Just what it takes to participate. Yeah. And Raw has helped lower that. But still, when knee sleeves are now $140 or whatever they are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It's and then there's the cost of the entry. I mean, you can be out $500 real quick. Even with Raw.
Yes, with travel, with anything, the entries,
Yeah. So that's the difference between a kid, being able to do a meet or not, or a kid being able to compete in a national meet. You know what I'm saying? With the local meets, it's a little different, right? Because there could be one in the same town. It's not.
Yeah.
But to get to a little bit higher level, you know, which would actually help them a ton.
Yes.
Because they're going to compete against people stronger than they are. Their perception changes, expectations change. Shit, that can be the difference between somebody becoming a great lifter and always staying a local good lifter.
Oh yeah. I'm not gonna. I mean, we've had help in situations. Yeah. But Christ, I mean, again, if we weren't in such a strong relationship, some things could have just broke us. Yeah. More times than I could put on both hands. I mean, just Jesus Christ. So that's what we finally got to a position as adults, and also in the sport, where we decided, like, okay, it was actually her idea. I'm just the co-founder. It's all her idea, and she hates when I tell people that, but it is her idea. Yes. You know, we wanted to see others. We wanted to, again, then our nature is just to help others, and that's something that really spoke to us and that we wanted to accomplish in our lifetime. And we started it just 2 years ago now. But
well, I know that there's people that are listening to this that believe in the vision of the company to live, learn, and pass on. You know, so if you guys that are listening to this, donating to something like this, because it is a nonprofit, it is a for real thing. The money does go to the lifters, not to them. Then go to, was it Kolbstrong?
Kolbstrongscholarship.com.
Yes.
Yep. And then basic steps and instructions, what it is, what it's for, how to apply for it. The application process. Actually, we do fundraisers and donations the entire year. And then starting on January 1st till the 31st, we accept the applications from the young athletes. There's steps. There's a whole instructional thing on how to do that. At the start of February, we have a small board. It's not just us, so there's no bias. There's like 5 people that review all the applicants, and we come to a collective agreement on. Say we have 12 spots this year. Raised over $12,000 this past year. So we have 12 spots available. If 30 kids apply, then we see, okay, I mean, we wish we could help all of them. Hopefully we get to that point someday. Look at who needs it the most, reach out to them, and then start cutting checks in February, March, and send them $1,000. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't take a huge donation to be able to help you guys. You know, somebody can give $20, $30. It adds
anything.
up.
Yeah, $10, $5, 20, 50. If you send 100 or more, you get put on our website as one of the as a sponsor or something. We have a whole list of people that donate $100 or more, and there's a whole list on our website of that. And then we do like the fundraisers and stuff. If people decide to sponsor the meet, either with money towards the meet or just things we need, like banners or just set up, and then they get put on like the banner or the T-shirts if it's like a little non-sanctioned meet or something. So yeah, it started from, again, it's her brainchild. The first year we raised $3,000. Second year we quadrupled that and raised 12.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really, really an incredible year. There's no like baseline like we have to raise 10. If we raise 5 or 4 or 2 or 10, it doesn't matter. If it's going to fluctuate. We know it's going to fluctuate like that. But as long as we're able to help people, that's our main goal with this whole thing. Because again, it just comes back to me or just us as people. We just don't believe in leaving people behind. People annoy me, don't get me wrong. I get pissed, I get annoyed, but ultimately, like I said, me being helped by others, I'm not going to turn around and just be a belligerent asshole and fuck the world.
Well, we all get pissed and we all get annoyed, right? I think the difference is, if I'm pissed and annoyed, most of the time it's going to be with people that I personally know. It's off camera, right? And then you realize shortly thereafter, I probably shouldn't have been that pissed and annoyed about this.
Yeah, it's a nasty habit I have of, I'll say, holding grudges. It's very easy for me to do. It's a bad quality, but I'm trying to work on it. It's just part of my nature. It's a bad quality, but. So yeah, but things annoy me. Don't get me fucking wrong. I get annoyed and pissed real easy, but I try to get the fuck over it.
With that, because I've been the same way. With that, it only hurts yourself.
Yeah,
right.
It's not a good feeling.
Yeah, because it's easier just to forgive and forget, right? It doesn't mean like you have to do anything,
right,
and participate or be a part of whatever that was that annoyed you. You just need to not let it annoy you anymore.
It takes a lot of energy out to focus on bad stuff.
Yeah.
I don't, I need as much energy as I can get to do some of these things I do, and to waste it on being salty. I still do it. Like I said, it's a bad quality.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work on it. It still happens, but I'm still developing as a human being.
Does it happen less now than it did a decade ago?
No. It's more.
It's more.
I think I'll blame. No, I won't blame. It's me. My experience in the military made my tolerance for stupid shit and stupid people less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh well, my dad. I don't know what she's saying, but
Mm-hmm.
no, the military definitely made me more intolerable of shit. I'm a little more testy with things. Social media, stuff like that. Ugh, gross, awful. So
Yeah.
anyway, but my reality someday is that I can live without a phone, without social medias.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, I want to get there. Being with companies, I need to work for them, so I'm trying to work with that and everything. But if I wasn't a sponsored athlete with several companies, my dream is to be just that ghost. I just want to lift weights, have fun, live life, and just compete and just not be online. But I enjoy promoting products and for companies because they've done so much for me. I absolutely will do it in return.
Yeah.
Why would I do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Are there any things that you wanted to talk about that I didn't bring up?
Not really sure. We covered a lot. Benching and the training and everything. I mean, I don't know. Do you got anything else for me?
I can keep throwing different stuff
Do
out.
it,
I just
man.
wanted to make sure.
I'm enjoying.
If there's anything that you wanted to talk about.
Oh no, I had like no direction with this. I'm following you because this is good shit.
What do people, when you do your podcast, and what do people want to hear from you the most?
Mostly it's how do you train? How do you make these things work? How the fuck do you do that? Is what it comes down to. Like how do you bench in a single ply that heavy? How can you put almost 1,500 pounds in the bar and not be obliterated? Stuff like that, or the classic ones. What do you do for back? What do you do for triceps? Stuff like that. Those are the most common questions. Sometimes I get really good philosophical ones. I can't quote any at the moment.
Yeah.
That are really good.
Well, let me flip some of those and say, not what do you do for your back? What should the average person who's asking you this question do for their back?
Everything.
Such
as train like a bodybuilder.
Define that a little bit more.
Train like a bodybuilder, I mean like hit your back from multiple angles with multiple movements, heavy weight, or do if you training a bodybuilder would mean more like doing higher reps, like 4 to 5 sets of like 8 to 10, more like hypertrophy, stuff like that. Do your shrugs, do your rows, your T-bar rows, Penlay rows. I'm saying rows quite a bit.
What's your feeling on the intent? Are you more worried about them just throwing the weight, or should they train it with a slower tempo and contraction and full range of motion?
I feel like back, a lot of times you see guys, especially newer athletes, they train back and they're just chucking the weight around. They have huge biceps. They're getting a bicep pump. Their arms, they're flat back. There's no back development whatsoever. So you do have to train with intention of like squeezing, learning how to not just chuck the weight, not starting a fucking lawnmower with the dumbbell and stuff like that. Actually working the muscles as intended. You wouldn't do that with a bench. You don't do that with a squat.
Well, some do.
Well, yeah, there's always those few.
Yeah.
But yeah, back training is just something that I've always done. It's never been developed the way I want until these last couple of years. When I was in the military, I realized that my back is not it. It needs to be developed. So I actually had 3 back days per week.
Well, what made you realize that?
Just by like visual at first, I'm like, I got no back.
Okay.
I've always desired that look, that the V taper and the huge fucking traps that like touch the ears. Mine aren't there yet. I'm trying. and just realized, I think also just like my bench progress. When I started training back more, my bench started going up.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I need to keep doing this shit. I was doing 3 back days a week, averaging about 100 sets of back per week.
How did those back days look? Were they the same, or did each change?
Each one was different. I might do one movement on the first and third day that's similar, but each day was different.
Was one biased towards vertical pulls and the other one horizontal, or
kind of a mix? Right now, I have what I call a back thickness day and a back width day. I was doing one back day for about the last year. I'm starting to realize that's probably not enough. I'm not doing enough volume. I need to work my back more than my front. That's kept me injury free. That's kept me moving forward. So I'm now doing 2 back days a week, a thickness day and a width day. But once I brought my back up to par, when I felt like it was up to par, okay, 3 days is good. I'm going to reduce that to 2 days. So 2 bench, 2 back, maybe a lower-ish body type, just for the sake of adding mass and strength. And then that eventually led to 1 back day a week, 2 bench, like a wrist and forearm day, and like a shoulder day and stuff like that. It's kind of like an accessory, all the weird shit day. That's I think bench, aside from, sans equipment, but I think bench is built from the back and the triceps. I'd put triceps first, and it's so overused, but like it all starts from your base. You can't bench 1,000 pounds or 1,400 with a weak back. That's what's in contact with the pad. That's what you're pushing from. Very, very basic philosophy on that.
Let's the same thing with triceps. We already talked about the intent, so we covered that. So with the people who are asking, not you, what should they focus on for their triceps?
Mostly like the free weight type. Everybody likes to do the push downs. They're easy. They're not hard to do. But that's exactly it. You have to do the shit that's hard. It's hard to do dead stop floor extensions with like max weight, like set to 5. That's really fucking hard. It's uncomfortable on the elbows. That's what you need to do. Your heavy dumbbell extensions. Dumbbell extensions, I think, get to a point, like you mentioned, how like the dumbbells get longer and the range of motion just isn't there. So I think dumbbells are more kind of limited. But yeah, just like the shit that's hard. I often refer to that feeling on that soreness as being kind of like a shearing force on the elbows. You don't want to overdo it and get injured, but you want to hit those movements to hit the back of the elbow, that tendon across the elbow, all that stuff I learned from Ryan Canelli back in the day. Just the hard stuff, the free weight stuff, the dead stop stuff. I see oftentimes with like the movements that don't break up the eccentric concentric chain, that your normal, like your JM presses or your extensions.
Yeah.
I see the tendency to like use that rebound to really get the weight moving. I like doing movements from a dead stop, like being on the floor, dead stop on the floor, like a deadlift for the triceps.
Yeah.
You're moving the weight with nothing but muscular contraction, no momentum whatsoever.
What would be your thought then on a dead stop bench from a low pin?
It's more, so I've done those equipped, I've done them raw.
Yeah.
And raw, again, I don't give a fuck about that shit. So I started doing dead stop presses with like equipment on, like slingers, not like a full shirt. Really like it. It's causing me to, you're breaking up the chain, but you also have to fire correctly. It's teaching you how to, like in the bottom of the lift, how to extend out of the bottom. A lot of value with that as well.
All right, just be clear for the listeners, you're still unracking and lowering.
Yes.
You're not starting.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm treating it just like a traditional bench. The only difference is the arms are raised up. I don't do like a full touch dead stop. It's like an inch or two shy. Maybe like 2 different levels, inch, 2 inches.
All right, so it's not off pins. It's just you stopping.
No, it is off pins.
Okay.
I'm setting the pins up high enough to where the bar stops 2 to 3 inches shy, say. A very obvious stop, and then firing and learning how to extend out of the bottom. Yeah, I like doing those. Floor pressing is more or less one of my most prevalent, like most used bench accessories these days.
You keep your legs straight or bent?
I bend them. I mean, maybe like halfsies sometimes, like part way bent or not all the way full out. It's just how I like to do it. I know some people say that's the wrong, but again, it's not a contested lift.
Yeah.
I'll do it how I want to do it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, like, oh, that row was crap. That's bad form. There's no such thing as a row competition.
Yeah.
Like barbell row competition. If I feel it, I'm making my back stronger and growing, then what does it fucking matter? Yeah.
All right, that's restoration and recovery. So say your forearm starts to get beat up. What do you do? How do you treat that?
I do
personally.
Everything. Good. I'm trying. There's probably more I could do. I don't know. We've pinpointed it that we think it's this brachialis that's causing. Oftentimes, what Jericho's explained to me is that the site of the pain is not the source. My most reoccurring thing is the pain right on top of this bone right here on the inside of the forearm. I talk about this like every single time I do a podcast. I talk about this forearm pain. So to get it to loosen up, so I'm not going to work on this area. It's what's above it getting tight that's pulling. So I'll scrape it. We'll massage gun it. Heat, cold, back and forth. What really changed the game initially was the cupping. I did 2 cups for 20 minutes, and the pain fucking went away. Now it's almost like my body's getting used to the cups, so now I have to find other things to do. Tom was talking to me about magnesium oils to add hydration directly to the area. So that's something I'm going to get into. I'm going to work with him. He wants to work with me on keeping my body healthy and working on these things. I have no mobility, so a lot of this shit's coming from no mobility, starting from my back to my shoulder to my front. So it's I don't do mobility or stretching, and I probably should. One
of the things that Mel Siff taught me that was towards the end of my career, it was more about staying together than it was getting strong, right? So recovery obviously became a much greater thing. Is the one thing that he told me that just stuck and resounded more than anything else was to remember that recovery modalities are like training. Your body will adapt to those. So to basically spend the off season trying to find the stuff that works the best. The time period, you don't have an off season, right? So it's heavy all the time. But spend the time that have less intent on trying to push the biggest weights, on experimenting with different things. And then when you find what works really good, hold it. And then use that for when you really are going to need it. So for what you're saying, the cupping works really well, right? So then you pull it, and then you save it. So then you try all the other stuff. Then over a period of time, years, you have, a box of gold. Then you have other stuff to experiment with. And for each person, it's obviously going to be different. But and to spend enough time trying to not use any recovery modalities as you can. Because it'd be like somebody that's taking drug supplements or whatever it is. If they're always on, the only thing you can do is increase. And that leads to its own problems.
Right.
That create that too. And that stuck with me because I fell into a habit of always doing hot, cold contrast. And I worked in a health club at the time that had access. And then all of a sudden it quit working. Then I'm like, fuck. What am I going to do now? This sucks. And
I didn't realize that your body can adapt almost to anything seemingly, not just the stressors from the gym, the recovery tools. So that for a while, ironically, almost the same amount of time the cupping worked. I was doing the hot and the cold every day for I would just sit and watch TV and just do hot cold for 2 hours or something, and that would make the pain go away. That stopped working. And it's funny that I did the cupping, that worked, and now my body's adjusted to it. Son of a bitch.
Yeah. So then it's what's next. Then what becomes the next rotation?
I'm taking. I get DMs on that shit all the time. I got people reaching out, try this, try that. I'm like, I've already done that shit, or I'll give it a try, and maybe it has some limited success. It's one of the most frustrating things with me right now is that consistent. It's sort of the touch sometimes. It's bad. And I just can't, I can't get it to fucking piss off and go away. So it's a work in progress. I'm still working on it.
Well, it becomes you're in a different world, right? Because when you're benching what you're benching, it is total body and total mind. It's everything. So with a big enough strain, it's going to leave you on the floor for half an hour sometimes, where people from the outside looking in don't get it, right? Because let's say they're using 30% of all whole 100%, however you want to define that. Where part of the goal for them is to close that gap. Like, how can they take that? I think they get sometimes too concerned with different training modalities instead of intent.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if when you press, I'll guarantee everything in your body is working, from your toes to your pinky. Everything.
Yep.
Brain, all of that. With a novice, you can see that's not the case. They're moving too much for that to be the case.
True.
Right? But they'll get so caught up into what's the best back exercise, what's the best tricep exercise, what's the best all this, where the best answer is learn how to have more intent.
Yes.
If you go from the 30%, just pulling a number out my ass, to 40, you're going to be way stronger. And I think when they watch better lifters lift, they don't see that. Okay. You know what I'm saying? They see all these other things.
Yep. Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah.
So it's in depth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the problem is when you get to that point, then when shit starts breaking down, it's like, oh shit, like it's breaking down for different reasons. And it's always different stuff. It's not like your triceps bothering you.
Right.
You know, or your shoulders bother. It's like the stupid shit. Like, why does my wrist hurt?
I had a nerve. I don't know. I had my hand go numb for like 6 weeks. Only when I had a barbell in my palm. So only when I did heavy bench.
Yeah, that's nice thought. That's
Nothing else.
Yeah, that's a nice way to think.
Fucking the most irritating. And it just went away. I was like, what the fuck was all that about? Why the fuck did that happen?
Yeah.
This is weird. I mean, we're putting pretty unnatural forces on our bodies. So weird shit's probably going to happen for as long as I'm doing this shit. It's gonna be an issue. I just have to, just like anything else in life, you have to deal with it when it comes up. And I've been doing that for my entire career. Something is always, and somebody asked me, like, are you in pain a lot? I said, like, nowadays I'd say, a whole body considered, I'd say 98% of all my days are in pain of some sort. There's never a day where I'm just like, fuck, I feel something's always hurt. I do it to myself. I know. So I have nobody else to blame but me. I tried, but I'm trying to work on it. It's just a consistent fucking thing. So.
One of the popular questions that I've been asked, I'm sure you've been asked a bunch of times, is if you could go back and speak to yourself, right? I'm going to change the question a little bit. Say, if you could go back and speak to yourself 10 years into your career, right? So you've been in it, what, almost 17?
18.
18. So 10 years in. So not if you could go back to the very beginning.
Okay.
Now you're already breaking world records.
Yep.
Right? If you could go back and talk to yourself, then what would you say?
It's not going to be as in depth as we're probably looking for.
Yeah.
One of the maybe one of the things I would say is, because at 24, I'll be 24, 10 years in. Don't leave the sport and join the military. Don't be a fucking. Stay the course. I know it's rough right now. Things aren't going the way you want. Stay in it. Don't walk away.
Why though?
Because it was, looking back at the whole thing, I mean, I did it for the wrong reasons. I walked away for very dumb reasons, I feel. And I wish I would have just, I mean, I was attempting 1,000-pound bench at like 23 years old. If I would have just stuck with it, I mean, I don't know where, maybe I would be burnt out by now. Maybe I'd be, I don't know. We live in a reality where you can't go backwards and change anything you've done. So why even, like, man, I wish I would have done this. And my buddy Chris back at home is just like, bro, you can't change anything. Like, fuck that shit. Just, what are you doing now to make a difference?
No, I get that. I understand that.
No.
Yeah, we can't do that.
But theoretically, I would tell myself, get through it, do what you need to do, but don't walk away from the sport completely. That'd be one thing.
But the question that you would have back to yourself then would be, what do you mean how? Right? Because it was that hard on you to be able to go a completely different direction. So that kid's going to need direction. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what do you mean?
I mean,
so then what do you say there?
I guess that's stemming from knowing what I know now and joining the military. If I could go back and somebody asked me, like, would you do the Marine Corps all over again? I said no. Yeah. Fuck no, I wouldn't do it again. It's just that perception of what they make it out to be, and then the reality is it's nothing. Like they said it would be.
Well, I get that, but you got to relight the flame on the kid that walked away.
Yeah.
So what's that conversation look like?
That's a good fucking question, because I'm trying to think of it. because I'm looking at what I do now when things get rough. And it's not rough enough to where I just want to walk away from it.
So what do you do now when things get rough?
Just fucking I don't know. I have someone to talk to about it, because that might help. 'Cause I didn't, like, we were together. I think we were just married and when I was 24, or just about to be married. But, yes, I don't know. But, you know, I internalized a lot of things. I took things very, very personal. There was more that happened in 2015 in combination of bombing out of the Army. That sucked.
Yeah.
I wanted to come back and defend that title and win it again. I didn't. That really sucked. A couple of the companies or people I was working with kind of were stepping away from me.
Yeah.
And I took that, and now I know why they did. We've rekindled. I understand. Yeah. I took shit really fucking personal.
Yeah.
And I just my answer was to just say, fuck this, I'm done.
Yeah.
Where I should have maybe like tried to understand what was happening rather than just being, you know, abrasive and just saying, I'm done, fuck this. You know?
Yeah. So your advice to the kid is don't be so emotional, don't things personal.
Try to
and have somebody to confide in.
Kind of like that, like talk to people, say what the you know. Don't be a fucking man, I guess. Go talk to this person. Why is this happening? Can we work this out?
Yes.
Don't be immature, I guess.
Talk to people that have been there.
Yeah.
You know, so this is way more deep than what you first said.
Yes, I can see where you. I like how you. Yeah. This is deep. Yeah. That.
No, but this helps, because had that all happened, you wouldn't have had that.
True.
Right, and you wouldn't have quit the sport either.
Yeah, I get. It's the whole. I guess what I had mentioned before. I said, like, I hold grudges.
Yeah.
Bad quality. So when I was done wrong by people, I was just like, that's the way it is. Fuck this.
Yeah.
That's not the way to do things, and I'm working on it. But I was 24.
Well, can you also make the same argument to say that you wouldn't be where you are now if it wasn't for those things?
Yes. And that's what my crew says. I'm like, oh, damn the Marine Corps, and I hate that I did it. And they're like, hey, bud, it got you here, though.
I get that.
It got you around us.
Yeah, I get that, but I think the same lessons can always be learned in a better way. Experience teaches us that.
Yes.
Right.
And that's my reality. I did what I did. I've done what I've done. Maybe I took that little bit of a break. Maybe that was the break I needed to move to the next level. Like, I was attempting $1 grand when I was that age. But maybe that was all I was capable of at the time. Maybe I needed a break. Maybe not completely just wash them. I dropped the sport cold turkey. I completely walked away from it in an instant. I stopped going. I wasn't even lifting weights casually. I completely abandoned the sport altogether. Weights, everything. Anything fitness related, I abandoned immediately.
Well, I think that happens to a lot of people as they move up and start breaking records and become better and become part of that top 1%, because a lot of you loses the reason why you started in the first place.
Yeah. That was a really dark spot. I mean, I've had worse. I mean, Marine Corps.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But outside of that, that was a very, very, very strange spot in our lives.
Yeah.
For me to do that, something was wrong. But I didn't handle it right. I handled it very abrasively. So I wish I hadn't have done that, but now I'm good. Now I'm good now.
Yeah.
I'm really happy. You know. So that was deep. That was cool.
It's learning.
It made me think. That's it made me think harder, so that was cool.
With that in mind, I think it's important for people to keep themselves anchored and grounded, right? So your scholarship thing is one way that you're able to do that, right? Because the ego does grow. I mean, we're not going to lie about that. I mean, as it grows, as you get stronger, the ego, comes. And by grounding it, by staying around people that still are really hungry just because they love the sport, right? I think you found your love for the sport again, but it fades too as records start falling again. Yeah. More pressure, right? More pressure, not from other people, but from yourself. More pressure starts to get added on, and you're like, what the fuck am I doing this? So that goes back and forth.
Yeah. I mean, I still to this day, highly, highly idolize like Ryan Kennelly. I still want to be like Ryan Kennelly and Scott and Gene and Tiny. Those are the people I look up to even to this day.
Yeah.
And it's just, I used to watch. I've seen every fucking video they've all put out in their entire careers.
Yeah.
I just always wanted to do the things they're doing. So when I get to do cool things like go to the Baddest bencher and have it be live streamed or on TV, and just being I'm living my literal dream.
Yes.
Of being like these. Again, I've always wanted to be the bench guy. I've always cared more about the bench. So yeah, like I really respect and I really idolize, say like Donnie Thompson, Dave Hoff, Dan Bell, stuff like that. But it's always been the benchers that I've always wanted to be like. So, so I still have that drive and that desire to be like them. So that's kind of what helps keep it interesting and fun.
Yes. Well, what can keep you grounded is to realize that there's kids that want to be like you the way that you wanted to be like them.
Absolutely.
And they're looking at you now.
Yes.
For what you do and how you act.
Yeah, and I want to set a good example. Again, I don't want to have people idolize me. I guess it could be similar to like when the Mark McGuire stuff came out in the 90s and people were idolizing him, and then it came out that like he was just on stuff, which I don't disagree with drugs at all. That's what people get that twisted with me. It's like, oh, you're against drugs. I'm like, no, I just don't fucking use them. But that could be heartbreaking for somebody if they think you're one thing. If they think you're this, so it turns out you're completely not. I don't want to be that. If someone looks up to me, I want them to look up to me in all aspects. Being a good person, being a good lifter or a good competitor. That's what I believe in.
Well, because she's sitting right there, are there any topics you think that he should talk about that I didn't ask?
You guys talked about a lot. If you want to talk about being a natural athlete and like what that looks like for you versus like what it could have looked like if you would have been on something.
All right, let's go down that road.
All right, cool.
If you want to.
I don't care. That's
All
fine.
right. So the question is, what has your road looked like as a natural athlete? What do you think it would have looked like had you gone the other direction?
The road as a natural athlete is a very long, slow road. I have scratched and crawled my way all the way to where I'm at. The recovery is rough and longer, I think. I think that's how drugs, they just speed up the recovery process, right? So for me, I guess as long as you can find ways to recover in a steady, consistent manner, I've always just said, like, then why would I need to go the PEDs route? One of the biggest catalysts for me was when I finally fell into my first CPAP machine. I think that is the answer to the fucking test. I didn't sleep for years, and I didn't realize how bad it was until we were in the military, and I started getting to my heaviest weight I've ever been in my life at that point too. So my sleeping got worse, and I was choking myself awake at night. I thought that was normal. I'm like, oh, I'm snoring. Or she would claim, oh, you're snoring like a lawnmower. I'm like, well, I hear you speaking, and I'm not snoring, but I am. That was just like the subconscious thing. I've been around plenty of athletes and friends and people that use. That's whatever. I have no ill feelings or ill attitudes towards anybody. It's your personal choice. I'm not against them. I just have never had the need to, I guess. Now, I'm not saying it will never happen. If I get to the point in my life where I have literally reached the end, my limit has been matched, natural, and I'm not happy with that number, that could maybe push the subject a little harder. And of course, that's been the subject of ridicule pretty much my entire life as well, claiming drug-free and then people saying that I'm not. I'm sure that happens to a lot of people. So, but it started in middle school. So since 8th grade, 2004, 2003, it's been a thing of topic and controversy. So that's it's really basic. I mean, that's it. I haven't found the need yet.
Yeah, but see, that can be a huge topic of controversy because before I ever used anything, I was being told that I was on. And outside of all the other criticism I was getting for any other shit I ever got in my life, that pissed me off more than anything. You know, so it basically ends up getting to a point where it's like, well, fuck you, I'll show you what can happen if I do. You know, and so that becomes harder criticism to be able to take in than some of the political shit associated with sport.
Yeah, I don't remember. I've only seen, what was that fucking documentary called? One of the Bell brothers did it.
Yeah. It'll come to me in a minute.
That one, Bigger, Stronger, Faster.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I know Louis was in it for a second, and I'm not trying to disrespect him at all. This is not coming from a place of hate. I think he said something along the lines of, if you want to be the best in the world, you have to do two things: use drugs and lift at my gym. I'm not quoting it. I've only seen it once. That was a long time ago, and that just hit me, you know, in a way. I just wanted to prove. I truly believe that anything is possible. I was not raised to believe in limits because I was raised by my mother. I was not raised to believe in limits. I'm realistic. You know, do I think I could bench 2,000 pounds? Probably not. But, you know, anything is possible within reason. So I just wanted to be able to prove that, like, yes, in fact, I can be the best at something, or the best I can be without, say, like, West Side and without the drugs. That was just something that personally, I spoke with Louis on 2 occasions my entire life. One when I benched 700 pounds for the first time, and I think when I benched 900 pounds for the first time. And again, like I said, he was not impressed. He was just like, yeah, come here and we'll put you in one of these and yada, yada, yada. But I looked around and realized that I have so much value with the people I'm with, and I'm doing such great things. Why leave? Why go over here? I don't think I need that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, not coming from a bad place where, you know, you spoke earlier about Mark's kill list and all this. I think everybody, to drive them, kind of needs enemies too.
Sure.
Like, even if you have to create them.
I mean, yeah, that.
You see what I'm saying? If you have to create them to be able to drive, no disrespect, like I said, no disrespect to who those people are, but they drive you.
Yes.
Those statements can drive you. You know, positive influence can drive us. You know, when I do, sometimes I'll do an exercise with people on how to determine their core values. And this will involve, you know, go back through your childhood, you know, from 18 under, and write down everybody that said something to you that changed your life in a positive way. Who was the person? What did they say? Now, on another sheet, you know, write down the people that pissed you off. Pissed you off. I mean, you might forgive them for that, but you're never going to forget it.
Yeah.
Who were they and what did they say? And then once you have those statements, you know, open Google and type in list of core values and assign core values to those statements, and you're going to see 5 things. Like, on one list, you're going to see things that violated your core values. On the other list, you're going to see things that supported your core values.
Right.
There's your core values. People have both.
Yes.
Right? And then both of those things are what drive you. You know, so if this is an exercise I'm doing with somebody that's founding a business, those are your business core values. Right? Because as long as you set those as your business core values, that's going to make it easier for you to sleep at night. Right? Because if you get stuck, because it's hard. Like, life is hard.
Yeah.
Right? When you get stuck with a decision, you don't know what to do, and you have that list, you can look at that list and you know what you need to do.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
You just might not want to do it. Right? But doing the things that you don't want to do, but you know that are right, and you still do it, that's called integrity.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like a home base with that, where it would be foolish to think that people don't have 2 lists.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And those can be that driver.
Absolutely.
You know, so in that case, it's like, okay, you know, fuck him. I'm going to show him I can do this.
Yeah.
You know, in a way, right? But it was enough for you to think, no, that's not true, and I'm going to show it's not true.
Right. Yeah. It's been. I mean, I've enjoyed everything I've done. You know, minus a couple of things, but yeah, doing it the way I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
Besides, maybe like going back to my younger self and saying, like, hey, maybe approach
you know what?
this.
It's a weird landscape though, because I've sponsored guys that were drug free, and they didn't want anybody to know. They just wanted everybody to assume they used, because it was an easier road for them to do.
Interesting.
right? It's like, fuck them. If that's what they think, that's what they think.
Yeah.
And then nobody really knew. The two of them went from untested federations to tested federations, right? And yes, the lifts dropped, but it's also going from gear to no gear.
Sure.
You know, so that's going to help.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to make a difference.
Oh,
And, but that was the reason. It's like, it's just easier just let people assume than to have to deal with all the negative bullshit that's going to come along with it.
Yeah. It kind of, it quieted down in terms of like me, like giving a shit about it as much. It's still, I still hear it obviously, but, I was extraordinarily, again, I was a teenager once and things hit me different and I handled them differently as a fucking teenager would. But now that I'm a little older and wiser, it's just noise. I don't fucking care. It's whatever. Think what you want. But it's something that I'm very, very proud of. And I'm going to, whether it pisses people off or not, I'm going to say it. You know, in a sport full of a bunch of tough guys, people sure do get, you know, kind of testy and upset at those two words, you know, drug free. It's just like, what the fuck? Why does it bother you so much? But again, it's something I've worked very, very hard at, and it's been a consistently hard road. Again, going from in the 600s as a teenager, and then 14 years later to get to where I'm at. It's not been easy at all. Maybe it would have been easier. I don't know. Again, I can't go back.
I don't know. I'm a big person and adversity is always there. I don't know if it would have been easier. The challenges just would have been different.
Okay. That's a good way to put it.
You know, because it's, I think the only way we move forward is dealing with adversity to be able to get there. Because life should be good. I agree with what you said.
Yeah.
It should be good.
Should be.
But it's good in between the bullshit you have to deal with.
Yes.
Which is always there.
Yes.
Right?
Never goes away.
It never goes away.
That's how you deal with it.
Yes. And I think the understanding that it's there allows somebody to process and deal with it better.
Yes.
And then to understand that it doesn't always last. And even while it's going on, it's not, everything's not bad.
Right.
Right?
You can always find something positive.
Always.
Yeah.
You know, and it's sometimes you need to pause to be able to do that, or have somebody to be able to point it out to you.
Yes. Yeah, that helps. Because I was always an individual. I mean, I was always drawn to an individualized sport as well. Like, I never played football. I hate team sports. You know, the idea that you could be the best football player in the state or the nation and still be on a sucky ass team because nobody else is pulling their weight or whatever. So I was always drawn to the individualized sports like track, field.
Field.
I didn't do the track part.
The field part.
Yeah. Throwing and stuff, and then the lifting. It's just me. Like, yes, you're having people help you along the way and train with you and coach, but like help you and mentor you. But it's you on the platform by yourself. And I've always liked that. I've always kind of been internalized in by myself. I don't mind being alone. My friends would just go nuts if they had to spend in high school. If they had to spend a weekend alone. We always had to be doing something. I could sit alone at home on my lazy boy and just like, I could sit there and just think. And I would lose 3 hours just thinking about things. Just anything. I would just sit there and think about stuff by myself, dead quiet. And I was fine with it.
Well, now I'm curious. Like, what stuff?
I don't know.
Like, if you're just to sit there. Like, if you're to go home and she's not there and you're just by yourself and you're sitting for 3 hours.
Sure. No,
what's going through your head?
It could be anything. Just life. Huh? Nowadays it's more, it's like, you know, I follow Elon Musk's SpaceX stuff very closely. That's a whole nother, No, like, when I was that age, it's just like, school stuff, friend stuff. Lifting was on once I got bit by this fucking sport, it was on my mind 24/7. And I could just sit there and just go over what my next workout's going to be, what I could do different, what do I need, scrap that one, let's go to this workout. Just think about all the statistics I was looking up online. I literally have been eating and breathing and living this sport since I was 14. Well, I guess 18, because that's when I started getting into the actual sport itself. But the lifting the weights has been an integral part of my entire being ever since I started. And I could just sit there and lose myself for hours, just thinking about shit, just anything in life that could come up. I would just sit there and think about it and just internalize it and just think. just enjoying my company.
Yeah.
You know. So I was never bored. I always had something to do.
Outside of your Instagram, which is Kolbstrong, correct?
Yep.
How else can people? Actually, your website's probably the best way, right?
Instagram's the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
Because it's right on my phone. Like, you know, I'm out on she's on a laptop a lot with our home business.
Yeah.
So, but I have a website, which is, you know, kolbstrong.com. We have the scholarship website, Kolbstrong Scholarship.com. Instagram is the most reliable way, unless you have my number, which I give out occasionally.
Yeah.
But Instagram is the most surefire way to probably get a hold of me about anything.
Okay.
So I don't turn anybody down to answer questions and stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's the point I try to get through a lot of people is everybody seems to think that everybody has somebody else doing their Instagram. Where normally individuals who have individual Instagrams are doing their own Instagrams because the last thing you'd want to do is to have somebody else do it for you.
Right. Yeah.
It's you.
Yes.
It
is me.
Yes. Now, how many that come in and how many get answered, that's a different type of thing.
Yeah.
But that's usually, I have found, at least, I can validate it through this podcast. You know, for years I was told, people couldn't find guests for the podcast if I had them looking for guests and stuff like that. I'm like, that's odd. That seems weird. You know, so then when I just said, fuck it, I'm going to start doing it, start Instagramming people, I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Everybody does their own Instagram except a few people that are, you know, millions of followers or whatever it is. But other than that, it's been the number one way.
Yeah.
The trick is how do I get them off Instagram to my phone number?
There you go.
Because then it's easier from there to be able to text.
I really enjoy, like, oftentimes I think it could be a trend I do by now, but I don't always type the messages.
Yeah.
If you ask a question, you're going to get probably between 3 to 5 voice messages from me.
Yeah.
Answering your question. I despise texting. I don't like doing it. I like speaking. I like sending voice memos. So hopefully I always say, like, don't mind me for sending a voice memo. You don't have to do it back. It's just how I like to conduct business. So don't feel like you have to return it with another voice memo. You can type if you want.
Yeah.
Because it might make some people uncomfortable, but I like talking. I get my point across a lot better by speaking than trying to type. It's faster too. So.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you coming out. It was awesome watching you bench yesterday.
Thank you. I appreciate this has been a privilege. Really appreciate that.
Yes, and I thank you guys for tuning in, and we are done.